Here we go. Hello again for another episode of I've Known You Too Long. My guest today is someone I have known for a long time. I say it every time because it's true. Right now, those are the rules. My guest is someone who has been involved in the Northwest hardcore scene for a long time. That's how I met him. He played guitar in a band called Champion, you might have heard of. And he played a bunch of bands. I'm not even going to try to list them all off right now. I know he's playing in Deadweight and The Crew.
Yep.
There may be others. My guest is Chris Williams.
Hello.
Also known as Posi Chris.
Yep.
Does he like that name?
Yeah, it's a name.
You've had it for a long time.
Very long time. Not as long as I've known you, but...
So it was coined after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know. See, I don't know when... I have an idea about when we met.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to sort that out. That's what we do. That's when we start. Figure that out. You've heard the show, but in case anyone else hasn't, we figure out when we met, we take it back in time, figure out where you came from, and we move forward from there.
Yep.
All right. Chris, I've known you too long.
I don't know, not nearly as long as a lot of the other people you've been talking to, but it has been a few years.
Weirdly, I feel like I've known you forever,
Mm-hmm.
and you're right. I've probably known all of those other people at least 5 years longer,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy
Yeah.
to me. I don't know where all this time went. It's insane. Yeah, so I think you were part of the infamous Candy Crew incident, were you not?
For sure, for sure.
Is that where you come on to the scene? Is that it? Is that the night we meet?
There was definitely candy involved. So I worked at a dollar store, and, there's lots of candy in dollar stores if you've ever been in there. And, yeah, we would just always have candy at shows, and I don't know who came up with that name, but it stuck for a couple months.
So there was a show at the Aurora House, which is where Carrie Whitney lived, and Jeff DeGolyer and Jake Snyder,
Mm-hmm.
and there would be shows in the basement. And one night, you showed up with, was it Eric Markley and Tori O'Donnell?
Probably Eric and Tori, Kevin Williams,
Okay.
if you remember him. Maybe Stinky Sullivan.
Are you making up names now?
That's a real name of a real person.
Okay, and here's what I know that happened is that you guys showed up. We'd been at shows together before,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think the guys I hung out with knew you guys necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you guys showed up at a show at the Aurora House. Do you remember who played?
I don't remember. I mean, I think I've been to a couple shows of that place, but
Was it Ink and Dagger?
no, it wasn't that. I want to say it was just locals. Maybe Lit played. Not the pop punk Lit, but your Lit.
Oh, Lit that became Screwjack. That would have been Lit, State Route 522, 9 Iron Spitfire.
That sounds about right.
If that's the case, I have video from that show. I have a videotape from that show, which I don't know if you're in the background in it. But what I remember about that is there were like dudes grumbling, like older dudes, like who are these guys? Who do they think they are? Because there were ladies that we knew that were like, who are these guys? They're cute. How do you like that patronizing voice? I don't even know if patronizing is the right word, but definitely a couple of the ladies there were kind of stoked that you guys had showed up, and because of that, for whatever, there were some dudes that were like, who the hell are they? And you guys were like new guys coming into the scene or whatever. And someone, I don't know if it was you guys called yourself this or someone else, but y'all had a bunch of candy, so you were dubbed the Candy Crew.
I want to say it was Carrie Whitney probably that came up with the name.
That said Candy Crew?
Yeah, because we just always had candy and would be like, hey, you want some candy?
Right. So it wasn't like this started that night. You guys didn't say, hey, we're going to go to a show at a house we haven't been to in Seattle. You guys were all from down south. You were all from...
Yeah, I grew up in Kent. Tori was from Auburn. Markley was from Federal Way, so all kind of around there, like halfway between here and
all of this is like 20 to 30 minutes south of Seattle on I-5. Okay. So I think we're both on board with that. I think that's the night. And then you just kind of became a fixture after that, I think. Do you remember anything specific about meeting me, like a handshake or a
hey? So I have a couple, actually.
Okay.
With you. So the first, I guess, handshake that I remember was there was a show at the Goat House that was Torches to Rome.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't remember who else played. Maybe Nine Iron or Botch or one of those bands. And then, you know, Carrie invited a bunch of people over afterwards. Hey, come on over. You know, so we went over, and I don't remember what the guy from Torches to Rome said, you know, but something, you know, about, you know, introducing yourself to potential friends in the scene or something. I don't know. But you came up to us and were like, hey, you know, this is kind of cheesy, but like the guy from Torches to Rome really inspired me, and I just wanted to introduce myself to you.
Wait, so I can't believe that I actually did that, but it probably sounds like me from the time. Okay, so Mike Kirsch, singing for Torches to Rome, later became Sarah Kirsch, unfortunately no longer with us, which is horrible because so much incredible music, so much inspiration. That was a person that inspired me musically, although I'm not a musician, and lyrically, and just in
socially,
person.
Apparently.
Socially, well, yeah, and definitely, I was always impressed. And so, yeah, okay, apparently I did this cheesy thing, and it worked, though, because, look, you're sitting in my office being interviewed on my podcast many, many years later, so that's kind of cool.
So I have a couple others, too, though.
But there are others.
Yeah.
So do you think that predates, does that Torches to Rome show predate the Candy Crew incident?
I'm not sure, but I do know some things.
I have a picture from it, so I'll put a picture from, I have at least one picture of Torches to Rome playing, I think, so I'll try to put that up on the blog for this. What else have you got?
I'm not sure if it was the Torches to Rome show, but the first show that I went to at the Goat House, this was back before, you know, GPS, back before really the internet. So you would get directions to a show from usually the bottom of a flyer. So, you know, sometimes those directions were good. Sometimes you would end up at a corner store hoping that a random hardcore kid would walk in
But someone's got to get their soda or their candy.
Exactly. So I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think that you and maybe Matt might have been at the store and were like, hey, are you guys on the show? Like, how do we get there? And you might have told us how to get there.
Oh.
But I do have something earlier.
Wait, and you think it was me and Matt Matsuoka?
Maybe.
Going to a show at the Goat House?
Maybe.
I mean, I can't picture what that would have been. I'm not sure. I don't really remember being there with Matt.
It might have not been Matt, but
it could have been. There was a lot of stuff, you know.
A lot of times I just kind of picture you and him as like inseparable back then, maybe. But
that's cool. I like that.
So the other story actually involved him, I believe, as well. But before this, I don't even know. This must have been like a year before this. A year before I even knew about like what like the Northwest bands were. Like I'd heard the name Undertow around a lot, you know, like, you know, kids would in like the punk skater scenes that I would run in would talk about this band Undertow, and or would always say, oh, you gotta check out this band, they're so awesome. And you know, I bought their CD at like Cellophane Square or something, but like, you know, this is before the internet. I had no way of knowing like when they were playing or whatever. And so we used to go skate in Bellevue, like downtown Bellevue, because I mean, there weren't really a lot of skate parks back then. We would just go skate, and the sidewalks were smooth, so you could, you know, do whatever. And I broke my board, and we went into the mall just to kind of hang out. You know, I had my broken board, and I believe that you and Matt or some other human gave me a flyer for a show. And I didn't know.
I was flyering in Bellevue Square Mall.
I didn't know that these were like hardcore bands until like later on. I found that flyer because that day I got a girl's phone number at the mall, and and she wrote her number on the back of this flyer, which I
hold on. And so you kept it like in a memory book?
No, I mean, you know, like again, you didn't have cell phones to put phone numbers in, so you would just like have it, you know, whatever, in your room somewhere. And then later, after I started going to shows, like, I found that phone number, and the back of it, I don't remember who exactly it was, but I want to say, like, maybe there were some, like, hardcore bands and maybe some, like, kind of East Side bands, so it would have been, like...
a Ground Zero show.
It was at Ground Zero. It would have been, like, Red Rocket or State Route 522 or one of those, and then maybe, like, you know, Nine Iron Spitfire or, like, an early trial show, maybe something like that. But,
all of those are possibilities at the Ground Zero Teen Center in Bellevue.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny finding that, you know, like after I'd been going to local shows for a few months.
You think I handed you that flyer?
I believe so. Maybe
were you
just
walking around with your broken skateboard?
Yeah.
I would have talked to you about that.
I don't know.
I can't imagine I wouldn't have started a conversation if I was going to hand a flyer. But like, what happened to your board, man?
I don't know. Like we were just walking and you know, maybe it was Matt and someone else or something, but just saw us in our like
Matt
rancid
did used
shirt
to
or
flyer
something.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be there. And that was South End Square was in the mall at one point, right?
I don't know if it was then or if it was across the street at that point, but yeah.
Well, excellent. Okay, so and what years are these? What year do you think that was? Are we talking 96, 97, or are we going
No, earlier than that. I believe like the first like local show that I went to was probably like late 95. So this would have been either early 95 maybe or
okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then the Goat House thing happens what? Or not Goat House, I mean
late 95, probably early 96.
96, talking about the show at the Aurora Family House, the Candy Crew incident, I will call it. And I hope if I can put my hands on it, I have a photo of you guys sitting on the floor in the Aurora House with Candy. And for some reason, in my mind, I see other dudes staring daggers at you from across the room. I don't know why. It was just so funny that there was like
plotting revenge.
I'm like, no, kids, like people coming to the shows. That's awesome, you know. And it has ever been my battle. Older dudes going, nah, fuck these kids, you know. Whatever. Each wave of kids brought people that stayed in longer and longer. It was awesome. Okay, so let's go back.
Okay.
Where do you
How
come?
far back?
All the way back, man. Tell me your story. Where were you born?
So I was born in Provo, Utah, and then I lived, you know, pre-memory, I lived in like Ohio, Michigan, and then my earliest memories were from Kent.
Okay, so you kind of become aware in Kent, Washington.
Yeah.
And were you there the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in a couple different places in Kent, but yeah, like growing up, going to school, I was in Kent.
Did you go to the same schools?
I went to a couple different elementary schools, and then, you know, the same junior high and same high school. But
okay, so what were you like as a little kid, man?
Man, I don't know. Not very interesting. Probably.
Can you remember?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was just kind of an outside kid back then. That, you know, ran around the neighborhood and rode bikes and you know, played football and wrestled and shot marbles and.
Wait, okay.
This is grade school.
So you had a slingshot sticking out of your back pocket. You're shooting marbles in the middle of the street with a kid in a cowboy hat with like little 6-shooter cap guns. All of a sudden, you've become a Norman Rockwell painting.
Yeah, and we had my driveway to my house was super steep, so like all the kids in the neighborhood would like come and race their bikes down the hill and crash and destroy themselves. And
okay, so you had one of those can we conquer the hill sort of driveways. Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So you had a crew of kids in the neighborhood that you hung out with? Mm-hmm. And how old are we talking now? Grade school?
Yeah, this is through grade 5. So, I mean, after 5th grade, I moved to a little bit different of a neighborhood. And it was very different because I feel like in my first grade school, it was all kind of like the same, like, social economic class. So there wasn't like a lot of like hierarchy in the school. It was just like everyone was just kind of a crazy kid.
Right. And then, are you really aware of that up to like the 5th grade?
I wasn't, but then like we moved to this you know, this new school, and we lived kind of close to a country club, so there were a lot of like rich kids, and they were kind of brats, and that's when you kind of like start to get picked on a little bit if you're not like.
It was still a grade school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 6th grade. I think like my first day of school, I think I almost got in a fight with a kid like walking home from the bus, like just because he was picking on another kid, and I was like. I don't even know. I was like, hey, that's not cool. And like, we almost got in a fight. And cool. I think some car pulled over and was like, hey, kids, don't fight.
Wait, so were you that kind of kid? If you're in the 5th grade and you're seeing a fight and you're going to step in, were you a fighter?
You know what? It's funny because I wasn't. I was at times like, I had a friend in elementary school that was just like. The worst kid, like, you know, like the kids that would like find a duck's egg and like smash it open and like tie snakes in half and like just like cruel kid. And I started realizing that he was just kind of a dick and like
but he was a friend of yours.
He was, but he wasn't a very good friend, and I kind of started realizing it. So I used to get in fights with him a lot. Like he would draw on my backpack like on the bus, and then as soon as we got off the bus I would like tackle him and like
like wait, so you'd just be like, all right, when we get off the bus, it's on, and he wouldn't know? Or would you warn him, like, when we get off the bus?
No, I would just tackle him, and we would just roll around. And
So it was like wrestling. It wasn't like punching him?
I don't remember like punches, but I definitely like smashed his head into the ground at one point, and there was blood.
Now, was it wow? Was it possible for him to win, or were you just you were just going to beat him every time?
I don't know if it never like escalated to the point where anyone won. It was just kind of like,
don't draw on my backpack, learn your lesson.
Yeah.
And he never did, I assume.
Yeah, and then I got to a point where I was like,
and that kid grew up to be?
I don't even know. Because then I moved away, and now he's probably in prison or something. Living in a trailer home or something. But
wait, okay, so prison or a trailer home.
Yeah.
One of the
Not that there's anything bad with living in trailer homes.
Two. All right. So you were not a stranger to physical conflict in grade school.
Yeah.
First fight?
Probably, I don't know, 3rd, 4th grade or something.
Do you remember what? Do you remember?
It was probably with him.
Okay.
Like,
all right.
Once I started realizing,
that was someone you knew. You ever get in a fight with like someone you didn't know? I guess in grade school you kind of know everybody.
Yeah, you know everyone, and it would always be like, meet me at the cow pasture after school. And then you go, everyone would be waiting out there.
Oh wait, so in grade school, kids would set up. See, for me, that's a distinctly junior high. That's we're not quite teenagers, but we're trying to like figure this out. So I never knew of anybody that set up an after school fight in grade school, but I definitely knew of people that set up after school fights in junior high. So you guys did that in grade school. You were a little advanced. Yeah. It's a little bit rougher. Like south of Seattle is a little rougher. Like I've actually had some people tell me some real theories about what the South End is like versus what North End people are like. And do you agree with any of that stuff?
I don't know. It's like it's everyone's memories of things too. So who knows like how real and on point those memories are.
Someone we both know, someone who I'll talk to one of these days, once told me that people from the South End are just more realistic. They're more abrasive because they'll just tell you the truth. They'll just say it like it is, And then people from the North End, and he was saying basically Seattle and north of Seattle, were all really stuck up and wouldn't really tell you the truth. It was all, and he said that was way worse. Like. Not being, not, and I'm not even saying it right because I can't possibly. And I remember him having he was very serious about that. And I've thought about it ever since. And I'm like, I know a lot of guys from down the way. And come to think of it, a lot of those guys were in a lot more fights than a lot of the other dudes I knew in the hardcore scene, or could hold their own better, or at least would talk like they wanted to, So I don't know if there's something to that.
Yeah, I don't know either. Like, I mean, there's definitely, when you have nothing better to do, like you end up doing crazy things, like you'd always talk about throwing rocks at each other and, shooting BB guns at each other. And that's what you do for fun because you don't have like.
Did you do that? Did you have BB guns?
I didn't. I never was allowed to have a BB gun.
You were not allowed to have a BB gun?
My friends had BB guns and we would, we'd shoot them at each other. And
were you smart enough? Like, did you do like goggles and stuff or just shot them at you? You didn't care?
No. There was no way that you even comprehended that was a possibility, getting shot in the eye.
So that wasn't something. Once again, childhood was just something to survive. And I see you have both your eyes. I'm assuming no one got their eye shot out.
There was a girl in my class in 6th grade. This is kind of changing the subject a little bit, but
go right ahead.
Yeah, and she actually was kind of in the hardcore scene later. But anyways, her dad was really big into archery. And, she was running around the backyard, and I guess her dad and her dad's friend were in the backyard shooting like bow and arrows. And she, I guess, came running out, and he released it. I'm doing hand gestures, which sounds awesome, I'm sure, on this podcast. But
you're still saying the words, though. But yes, I'm sure it's better for me because that was pretty dramatic, the arrow release right there.
Yeah, so he shot this arrow right as she comes running around the corner, and the arrow went through both sides of her legs. Like, I'm pointing to like the side of my thigh.
Right.
Basically pinned her legs together.
Whoa.
And it was a big deal. But
did you knew her when this happened, or people just told a story about her later in life?
No, I knew her. I wasn't there when it happened, obviously.
Did she show people
like,
the scars?
Oh yeah, and she missed school like for some time and stuff. I mean, it doesn't sound like a real story. It sounds like an urban legend,
Okay, I need to know more things about this then. Did people like ostracize her for that, or did they think she was cool for it?
I don't really remember that level of specificity, but I would think that kids would think it was cool. Like, whoa, you got shot with a bow and arrow. That's
and then
awesome.
Later on in life, she's going to get tattoos around the scars.
Yeah, maybe.
But we're not going to say any names.
Uh-huh.
So, but is this someone I would know?
I don't know. So, I don't know. Okay, so we're skipping ahead a little bit, but
All right. I'll bring it back.
Okay. So when I was in like 7th grade, she was dating one of my best friends. And she was kind of into like a lot of the stuff. He was like the guy that kind of got me into like suicidal tendencies and like, you know, 9 Inch Nails, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, like early stuff. Like
So was Suicidal
Descendants.
the first like punk rock band that you heard?
Probably, yeah. Or
Me
maybe
too.
the Descendants. Yeah. So
Those are both good. Those are both good starts.
Yeah. And so of course I had, you know, a flip up pad that said Suicidal that my dad, you
And
know,
I'm
was
assuming it was the first record.
Yeah. Anyways, she was dating him for a little bit, and he like moved away. She moved away, and like the first like straight edge dude that I ever met, this was years later in high school. I met him at a party, like in the woods, like literally
Party
in the woods. Yep. And everyone was high, drunk, and me and he were the only ones that weren't. And we just kind of started talking about like, you know, I was listening to some like Gorilla Biscuits, maybe like a little bit of Youth of Today, Minor Threat, obviously. And we kind of started talking about straight edge, and like that was something that like I was already kind of thinking about like those kinds of things. And he was straight edge. I don't even remember his name. I want to say it was Ben or something.
This was the guy that had dated her when you were in 7th grade?
No.
Oh.
So this guy lived on Vashon Island. And I think that's where this girl moved away to. So I kept in touch with this dude because he was like the only guy that I knew that listened to that kind of stuff. And
Right.
It turned out that he was dating her now. And they were both like straight edge and like went to shows and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Just a random, random
totally
connection to when
random.
you were younger. So now, was he someone that inspired you as far as straight edge went? Were you,
Mm-hmm.
so you weren't straight edge yet at this point, at this party?
I kind of was. I mean, I wasn't like, you know, I didn't call myself straight edge, but like, you know, I listened to Minor Threat. I thought the song was cool. Like growing up, I never really like partied. I always thought it was kind of like funny that like everyone else, like at first it was kind of a thing like, hey, you know, smoke with us or drink with us. And I was like, nah, dude, I don't care about peer pressure, whatever. Screw you guys. I'm going to do my own thing. And then like the older I got and the more I started hanging out with like dudes that were, you know, drinking a lot and stuff, smoking or whatever. Like I kind of like I thought it was funnier and like more punk rock, I guess. So
You thought it was funnier and more punk rock to do it or to not?
to not do it.
So did you never?
I did a little bit, but this was like, I think I smoked weed like once when I was in high school.
Okay.
And this was at a point where I was just like, yeah, whatever. But I didn't really like.
You were just,
I wasn't
it
really
was
into
high
it.
school, so you were just over it.
Yeah, kinda, you know? But then like I tried it and I was like, yeah, it wasn't very cool. It made food taste real good, but like other than that,
What we did the one time?
yeah. Yeah.
And you didn't drink or smoke?
No, I've never like smoked a cigarette, never drank.
See, I did some of that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So yeah, so I was at this party and he liked a lot of like the bands that I liked, and so we talk about that. And I got his number, and you know, I used to talk to him on the phone a lot, probably more than any like dude whose phone number I'd ever got.
You always call him up and say, "Hey, let's talk about hardcore."
Yeah, dude, I would call him up and he'd be like, "Dude, have you heard like I don't even remember, you know, I remember Gorilla Biscuits was one of the main ones that we like talked about. You know, Minor Threat, Youth of Today. I'm sure there was some stuff that he got me into that I wasn't really into before.
Is this someone who's still around?
Not around here. Like I don't know where he lives now, but he used to live. He lived on Vashon Island. He worked in at the QFC on Mercer Island, which was quite a commute for a job at QFC. But
Yeah. But you know,
Yeah.
times were tough.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Was this early 90s?
yeah, probably. And you know, I don't think I was ever at a show that he was at. Like once I started like finding out about the local shows, like I think he kind of like, I don't know, moved away or like got older or something. We kind of just lost touch. But yeah.
Friends on Facebook now?
No, I mean, probably the last time I talked to him was like on the phone. Maybe at QFC, like maybe I was driving through and I stopped by to say what's up to him. But
It's just funny the people that you can reconnect with after decades, you know?
I don't even really remember his name, to be honest. But yeah, definitely played a big
You had to
role.
ask
in, like,
for somebody when you called.
Yeah, that was 20-some odd years
For
ago.
some people,
so.
yeah. I mean, for some people, that haze of time makes
Mhm.
stuff really, really confusing.
Yeah, I want to say it was Ben, but I may be making that up.
Okay, that's fine. It's Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Ben from Vashon.
Mm-hmm. I remember Monique, though, was the girl that got shot with the bow and arrow.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. When you started the story, I thought you were going to say she got her eye shot out.
Mm.
And she was the girl with the patch.
Nope.
No.
Sorry to let you down there.
That's okay. Eventually, I'm going to get that story out of somebody.
We used to, speaking of throwing rocks.
Sure.
So when I was in 6th grade is when I started skating, and I started hanging out with these kids, and like, the kid that kind of got me into like punk rock, his name was Mick, and there was a kid named Sean that was kind of more of like a jock kid eventually, but he like skated with us. And then there was this BMX kid that lived on the block that was like, I don't know, he probably did some drugs, but we just thought we in our mind he was like a drug dealer.
Because he had a BMX bike?
Yeah. Or
Did he have long hair?
Know. Yeah.
So he's like totally. Slash on a BMX bike?
No, he was like your stereotypical like redneck, like long-haired rocker biker dude.
Yeah.
But we used to throw rocks at him.
You threw rocks at him?
He was kind of scary too, so we thought it was kind of funny to like, we'd like talk trash to him, and we would like...
And he was older than you?
Yeah, he was like a couple years older. So we would like we'd throw rocks at him and then run and like hide in the woods. And he would get like the serious rage. Like if he would have caught us, he probably would have killed us.
Yeah, I mean, guys like that, I always expect I expect him to be shirtless a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Or wearing a flannel, like an open flannel, no shirt underneath. Mm-hmm. And then he's gonna pull a knife. Mm-hmm. Might be a butterfly knife, or it's
probably rusty.
Probably, but you gotta hope he doesn't find you.
Uh-huh.
You know, yeah. That sounds great, and you never got caught.
No, but the funny...
So that was his name, Rusty?
Yeah, we'll call him Rusty. But the funny thing is, we would do that, and then, like, literally the next day, we would have... Because he lived 2 houses down from my friend Mick, and literally the next day, we would be out skating, the launch ramp in front of his house. He would come out and ride his bikes there, and we both would be just chilling.
So it just reset.
Yeah.
What happened yesterday doesn't matter.
Totally. And it wasn't like he was our friend. It was just kind of like, he was there, and we had our ramp out, so he would come chill and ride around, and then the next day we'd be throwing rocks at each other.
Did he go off the ramp on the BMX?
Yeah.
Did it look cool?
Like off the side, probably,
Oh, okay.
Because it was a little bit of more of a quarter pipe. Like,
okay. It wasn't for launching?
Mm-hmm.
No, just in case people don't understand what we're talking about. You're saying the angle went up high enough that you'd ride up the ramp and ride back down, not fly off the end of the ramp, land beyond it, and continue skating.
Yeah, or you could launch off the sides.
Did you prefer launch ramp or jump ramp?
Launch ramp, for sure.
Launch.
Yeah.
It's a launch ramp. Mm-hmm. But I've heard people say it the other way.
Launching sounds more extreme.
Way better. When did you start skateboarding?
Probably about 6th grade.
6th grade?
Yeah.
So what year is that? Because we haven't really established your age.
When
were you born?
77.
Okay.
So this was probably like the late 80s, 88, somewhere in there, you know.
So
pants, like tight-rolled pants were cool.
It was good skateboarding.
Yeah.
You have a Tony Hawk?
I didn't. So...
What kind of board? What was your first board?
I never had a Nash.
Good.
And I never had a Huffy. But I always had...
a BMX bike?
Yeah. I always had like the step up. So I had a Murray bike.
Okay.
And then I had a Veriflex. And I think I had a Veritech at once.
See, the thing is, Veriflex, that is exactly right. Veriflex was a step up from a Nash. But
it's horrible.
The toy store Veriflex was different than like skate shop Veriflex, if I remember right. There were such things. I believe there were Veriflex team riders.
Were there?
At least one. I'm gonna have to do some research. Okay,
so that was my first board. Was probably like a Veriflex, and then I probably had a Veritech, and then my first real board that I bought a complete from this kid at my junior high in 7th grade. It was Jeff Candle, Santa Cruz.
Okay. Street model, the red one with the graffiti on the bottom?
No, it has like this alien holding the planet
world.
Earth,
yeah,
and like a nuclear warhead and like missile in the other hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you read the skate shop article that I wrote about the skate shop I had in Bellingham, there's a picture, and you can see that very deck on the board behind me.
Really? Awesome.
Or on the board behind the person in the picture. I don't know if it's in the one I'm in.
Yeah, so that was my first, and then I had...
Cool.
I want to say Independence, maybe. But
I believe that was Jeff Kendall's ramp, like vert board, they would call it.
Okay.
And you had Indies?
I had Indies, I believe, and then I had like rat bone like 85As. They were super soft.
You liked the soft wheels.
Yeah, I mean back then.
Did you choose them to be soft?
No, I mean I was
you
a
bought
poor kid that like, you know, I don't know how I got the money. Probably I had a paper out at that point. And
what did you pay him for that?
I don't even remember. You know,
$80.
I want to.
It was used, right?
Yeah, maybe 50.
Okay.
So, but I mean, that was, you were pinching pennies for a while to get that $50 up, and then when it broke, like I probably didn't have a skateboard for another year and a half.
It was weird. Like when I started, because I was really poor too.
Mm-hmm.
When I started, just getting the first board was so difficult.
Yeah.
But after that, everyone, like once you had kind of proven yourself,
Mm-hmm.
if you broke something,
Mm-hmm.
the other dudes that I skated with would be like, okay, we got to figure out how to get him. We got to get him another truck.
Yeah.
We got to get who's got parts. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this friend John Dodd who would totally try to MacGyver stuff, and you know, he'd be like, no, we can. So you broke the base plate. We'll go get another base plate off this one where they broke the hanger or whatever, and they, you know. So we did that whenever possible, and then I'd always kind of have in my head like, how am I going to get my next deck? You know, I'd start saving up for it. So when the inevitable happened, the worst thing would be though was when you have a board that wasn't worn out at all, and you fall off it and it goes out in the street, and that horrible car hit happens.
Or you just rail slide too hard and break it in half.
There is that. If when you're a little more advanced, I guess. Originally, we were breaking them by like riding them off of loading docks.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first real board and truck breaking thing that we were getting into.
Those loading docks were like, they might as well have been like the skate parks of that era. Like, there weren't skate parks, so you would go find these, you know, ramps that were somewhat shaped like a half pipe, but you would just pretend it was a half pipe.
Totally. Yeah. And, you know, the loading docks were always at some cold storage place or some place where the dudes that worked there were not people you necessarily always wanted to run into. So you get run out sometimes, or other times they'd just be like, I'm not messing with it. I don't get paid enough for this shit. And they just go into work and leave you alone. But in Bellingham, it was a cold storage where we'd go. And yeah, a lot of things got broken there.
Yeah, I was lucky that once I got into high school, like there still weren't a lot of skate parks. There was like the Seattle one. I want to say Bellevue had that one, but you had to pay for it. Then that crappy Mercer Island one were like the only skate parks. But we had, there was a place called Barb's. Have you heard of it?
No.
It was basically like this kid, the skater kid who lived like in the middle of in the woods. Like if you're familiar with the Auburn, like Lake Tapps area.
Kind of.
Like, this is where Tori grew up. It's like way out in the woods. And you would have to drive like literally. I mean, I lived in Kent, you know, over by Lake Meridian, which is probably like 15, 20 minutes off of I-5. And then you had to go like another like 20 minutes further out into the woods. And yeah, so this kid lived there and he had a half pipe in his backyard. And then he had like some like street ramp set up on like a basketball court in his, but you had to drive out into the woods and then literally down a gravel road to get to it. Like if you didn't know about it, there's no way you'd know. But he moved away, I guess. And, but his mom was super cool and her name was Barb. Okay. And, she basically let the kids like come skate there still. She would be like, you know, as long as you guys keep, you know, the ramps up, you know, keep them up and, you know, you can come skate here. And so I would go there like every day after school, and there would be probably like anywhere between like 10 and like 30 kids skating.
Oh, wow. There. And how many ramps? It was a full half pipe?
There was I want to say like an 8-foot half pipe. And then he had a mini ramp that was like 3 feet. And both of those were under like this really well put together tarp. And so they were both super nice. And then the street course
and you could skate it rain or shine.
Yeah, it was great.
And it was a street course also?
Yeah. It was so cool. And so you'd go out there, and at that time, there were a lot of pro snowboarders in the Auburn area. Like, if you remember, like, Jamie Lynn or Todd Slosher, but I don't know. You'd go out there, and all these, like, pro snowboarders would be there. And, like...
Oh, it was a place to go, man.
Whoa. And they had, like... I want to say there was, like, a boombox up there, so you could bring your tapes and, like, jam whatever you want. You know, put in some Operation Ivy or some... whatever Minor Threat and just drop into the half pipe. It was awesome.
That there's nothing, I don't know if I'll ever do anything in my life as fulfilling as skateboarding a homemade half pipe to a second or third generation punk rock tape and a crappy boombox. Like that, I'm sorry. There's just, you could spend thousands of dollars and you won't have that experience.
So the first time I met Tori, I actually was driving to Barb's and he was walking down the road. And I was like, oh, this guy's got a skateboard. I'm going to pick him up. So I just
nice. He wasn't even like hitching.
Yeah. I was like, hey, you going to Barb's? And he's like, yeah. I was like, hop in. And that was the first time I met him. And then I would see him at shows, but like, it wasn't really like we were friends, you know? Like, I wouldn't even really say hi to him.
And the guy we're talking about is Tori O'Donnell,
Yeah,
who sang for Left With Nothing, sang for Lahar. Is he in a band now?
Not right now. He played bass in Deadweight for a little bit.
Okay. Deadweight, the band that you're singing for right now.
Yeah.
But so he's someone, I mean, I released records, you know, with his band, and he's a great guy. He was one of the people that came up the first night that I met you, or that I'm remembering. Cool. So how old were you guys? Oh, you were driving.
Yeah, so I was probably like, I don't know, 16 or 17 at that time. And then I would see him at shows. Like I would go, this was before I really knew about the local hardcore shows. This is when I would hear like echoes of Undertow playing like some basement or something. And so I would go to like bigger shows. Like, I don't know if you remember, like they used to do shows at the King Theater. So I would go up there.
Sure, but now.
And I would see him.
Hold on. How do you go to your first show? Because going to shows, we all know about that. But what's your first show?
So my first like real show that I went to was Seaweed, The Lemons, Alcohol Funny Car, and Popsicle.
Okay.
Played at Green River Community College.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And Seaweed was like my favorite band at that time. So like I think my second show was Seaweed at the King Theater with Spark Marker.
Oh.
And that was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Was this right around the time? I'm trying to get some time frame here. Was it around when 4 came out? Were they a big deal yet, or was it just before they broke?
Yes, it was. 4, I think, had just come out because they were. I mean, and also it was like during like whole grunge explosion, so like everything was huge. So like I want to say that King Theater show was probably sold out, which that place is ginormous, right?
The King Cat Theater.
Yeah.
It was big. Yeah, it was hard to sell it out. Like if No Effects came to town, I know they played there with Face to Face, and
like
then
Offspring. I saw Rancid there. I did my first stage dive at the Rancid show there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go to your first show. How do you decide you're going to go to this show?
Actually, let me back it up a little bit.
Oh yes,
that was my first show, but the first real band I saw. This is funny. The first real band that I saw was Rikki Tikki Tavi. They played at my high school. And it was like...
And it wasn't a show because it was at a high school event.
I don't count it. But it was like...
Was it at night?
Yeah.
Did other bands play?
Yes, but they were like they would do like Alice in Chains covers and like Pearl Jam covers.
So it was like
stuff.
a school dance.
Kind of, but like there was like a mosh pit until it got shut down, you know? Like... no moshing.
Was this Lex singing Rikki Tikki Tavi?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. Did they have a different singer before?
After.
Okay. Yeah, so it was definitely Lex singing. And I think that was probably the first 7-inch I ever bought too.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Whoa, so your first live punk band is Rikki Tikki Tavi, and your first vinyl is Rikki Tikki Tavi.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I knew this girl in high school who her boyfriend, I think, maybe put out that record or did something with them. And so like that's how it happened. They came out and played with a bunch of grunge cover bands, but
Okay, so that was, you already liked punk music. You got to go see a thing at your high school, and then you decided, I'm going to this Green River Community College. I'm going to see a show with the big kids.
Yeah. So the Seaweed thing, I think the first time I heard them was probably like either the end had like a local show. Maybe there was they recorded like a Beat Happening cover, Foggy Eyes.
Seaweed did?
I think, they recorded a couple Beat Happening songs, which is kind of funny, but
Are you a fan of Beat Happening?
Not really. Like, I think they're kind of cool and weird, but I just think it's funny that Seaweed's covered them. Like,
I don't think anyone's mentioned Beat Happening on this podcast yet. Yeah. I was just waiting for it to come around.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say they recorded 2 Beat Happening covers, and then I definitely saw them do another Beat Happening cover live once. And I had no idea why this band that I loved Beat Happening, but so it was either that or do you remember? Well, there were 3 video shows that I watched. One was Bomb Shelter, Bohemia After Dark.
I've heard of it. Never saw it.
And Northwest Rock, I want to say.
There was one called Northwest Rock?
I think so. And I think Seaweed hosted it once.
Oh, nice.
And they had the video for Bill, which is off the Week record.
Yeah.
And that's what that video is what made me want to play SG, which I still play to this day.
Oh, cool! From the Seaweed Bill video.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, and
I
wait,
think it was Wade had one.
All right, but so 4 was the record 4. See, I feel like Seaweed 4 is where they really break for a lot of people. They,
for sure.
They had video play off 2 videos on MTV. Beavis and Butthead made fun of one of the videos, made fun of Dan Dean, who's, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Stealing bikes.
It's a great video.
It's awesome.
It really is. Michael Ann had never seen it, and I showed it to her a couple weeks ago, and she was just like, why don't people look at this and go, this is how you do a music video?
That was a great video.
I wasn't able to. Seaweed said they wanted all the hardcore kids to come out to the arcade to be in the video because they were going to be playing in an arcade. They wanted everyone to be playing video games in the background, and then these kids come to the arcade and steal bikes. Yeah, and it's Dan Dean and Sean, kid named Sean. Can't think of his last name right now. Who was around? He had long hair. When I met him, he was a bald Krishna kid, but he had long hair in that video, and so good.
Yeah.
Okay, but so when you went and saw them, it must have been when Week was out.
I don't know if 4 had come out the first time I saw him or not. Like, I don't think it was out yet, but it was out by the time the second time I saw him was. So, but I remember, like, that show had a huge impact on me because I still, like I listened to a lot of, like, punk music, but I still wasn't, like, exclusively punk. I would listen to, whatever. Like
whatever's on the radio?
Yeah.
What is your most embarrassing, best loved song from when you were a kid?
Oh, man. I don't know.
I mean, any of them would be pretty embarrassing, but you could think of one that you really dug.
I don't know. In junior high, it's funny because I started listening to like Suicidal Tendencies and Descendants, like 9 Inch Nails pretty early, like 7th grade. But then I kind of still listened to a bunch of whack stuff, like like Belle Biv DeVoe and like stuff like that. Fresh Prince.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was kind of rap and hip hop that you were into?
Yeah, whatever was on the radio, So, but yeah, the Seaweed show. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, okay, so you were a kid who listened to music early on. Neighborhood kids listen to music.
Yeah.
Because some kids aren't even aware of music until later.
I don't know how I got into music. Like, I think my parents had a bunch of records. Like my mom had a bunch of like, I don't know, probably like Simon and Garfunkel and like maybe some like opera like records and stuff. And I used to have a record player that I would listen to like I don't even Winnie the Pooh like records or something when I was a little kid. Yeah. But the first tape that I ever had was actually I found one in my backyard. Like maybe it wasn't in my backyard. I found it in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was. It didn't have any markings on it at all. And I took it home and I was like, oh, I wonder what's on this. And I started listening to it and it was like the first rap that I ever heard. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like,
do you know what it was?
No, I had no idea. I found out later, like years later. I played that tape so many times because it was the only thing I had.
Sure.
And a few years later, I found out it was Run DMC.
Nice. Yeah. That is killer.
That's awesome.
Was it what, Tougher Than Leather?
It was the early stuff, like
I don't
the
actually
good stuff.
know well enough.
Yeah, I don't know the name of it because obviously I don't even know. Like,
Whoa, well that's cool. That's a gift from the heavens. All right, but so
I think the first CD I had was probably like Kenny G or something whack, but
right. So at some point though, someone plays either 9 Inch Nails or Suicidal Tendencies.
Suicidal was the first.
Because 9 Inch Nails you could have heard on the radio.
Not at this point, like.
But it came
later
along
on.
Quickly. So tell me about that experience. Did someone say, "Hey, I want you to listen to something"? Did they bring it to your house? Did you go to someone's house? Was it outside? Was it a skate ramp?
Yeah.
Where did it happen?
So my friend Mick, I would just go and hang out at his house, and he listened to a bunch of like weird, obscure stuff, like Descendants and Suicidal were the ones that really stood out to me. He listened to a lot of like Waver music, The Cure and stuff. That I got into a little bit later, but I think
I love that you call it Waver music.
Yeah.
I really do.
And the other thing too that he got me into was Straight Outta Compton, that NWA tape. And I was just like, whoa, what's this?
Oh my God, this is scary.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't that he said, sit down, I want to play something for you, get ready for this. It was more just that it was in the background at his house and you picked it up. And the ones that you clued into were Suicidal Tendencies and the Descendants. And I'm assuming with Suicidal Tendencies, it's because the stuff the guy was saying was just
ridiculous.
Absolute insanity. All they wanted was a Pepsi. Definitely something that anchored that in people's minds. but I shot Reagan,
Yeah.
and I saw your mommy, and your mommy's dead.
That was the one that stood out to me the most. It was like, what? Okay. I thought it was funny, so
And it's like, I don't know if it was like this with you, but for me, it's like, my parents cannot hear this.
Oh, yeah, for
like,
sure.
Not any of it.
You had secret shoeboxes and...
Did you do that? Did you hide music?
For sure.
So what was your parents' relationship to your music?
They didn't like it when they heard it, but I would definitely not like play that stuff around them.
But sure. You weren't forbidden from like rock music or punk rock music.
No, just I mean, if they would have heard it, with swearing or whatever, like I shot your mommy, like definitely those tapes would have been thrown away or burned or something. But
did you ever get in trouble with music with your parents?
Mm-hmm, for sure. I mean, one time they found. There was a Urban Dance Squad. Do you remember that band?
Yeah.
They had so their lyric sheet was really weird because it would have pieces of the lyrics but not the full song.
Right.
And if you read this one song, I don't remember what song it was, it sounded like it was just like about doing drugs and like just being horrible, like because those were the parts of the lyrics that were there. When I actually found out what the real lyrics were, like it was total like anti like.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Like every other line then changes the context of the. Okay,
it's real weird. So that was the one thing where my mom made me like read the lyrics to her, kind of like it was one of those things, and I just kind of refused to do it. I was like, no. But
did they take away your Urban Dance Squad tape?
Probably. It was a CD at that point. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess CDs are in play at this point.
I have another kind of funny story about music getting me in trouble.
Oh, I want to hear stories about music getting you in trouble.
This was before I really kind of got into found out about the local scene, but I was going to a lot of shows, like as many shows as I could go to, and I loved Fits of Depression was a local band that I really was into. And I was always getting grounded, not because I was actually a pretty good kid. Like I didn't really do a lot of like bad things, but I was horribly not punctual. So like I was always late to anything. Anytime I would go out, I would be late. So I'd get grounded. I was always
grounded for coming home after curfew.
Yeah, I was always grounded when I was a kid. So this one time while I was grounded, I snuck out, basically like at dinner time, met a friend of mine on the side of the road. And she drove me to see this was at the King Theater as well. Fits of Depression, Engine Kid, Wool, and Space Boy. The place was huge, but there were probably like 80 people there, which is a pretty big show. But
unfortunately
for
that lineup, I can see that happening. And it's too bad because it's probably
a great
cool.
show. Yeah. So I got busted on that one. When I came home, my parents
waiting for you.
They probably found out that I snuck out probably like 30 minutes after I left. So like they like closed my window, did that thing. So I had to kind of like knock on the door to get in. So I got grounded for longer for that. But and I, my mom, how parents will kind of try to guilt you and be like, was it worth it? And I gave the wrong answer. I was like, yeah, it was pretty cool. That was not the answer she wanted to hear.
See, I feel like, okay, I don't have kids. You don't have kids, do you, Chris?
No, not yet.
Okay, so for me, I hear that, I'm like, right, good answer. Hell yeah. And I feel like if I was a parent, I'd be like, right on. Yeah. But apparently something changes and you get a whole different perspective when the kid's yours. But, for my friends' kids, I've always kind of liked it when they were being bad. Not like drugs bad, not like screw up your life bad, just like rebelling a little bit. The story of everyone's life is when they rebelled and grew and changed and had things happen that were important to them forever. And then parents they try to set up these stumbling blocks to keep that from happening. So I don't quite understand it, but
I got another story that goes with that. So my best friend in high school, the one that I would go to like skate with all the time, he smoked a lot of weed, but I didn't. Like the one time I did with him. But he went somewhere with his family and like on a ferry, and he was like sitting there, kind of leaning back, and he had his pipe in his pocket. And he went up to go to the bathroom, and I guess he was leaning back, so the pipe slipped out. And when he went, his pipe was there, like, and his mom saw it. And he comes back, and she's like, "What's this?" And he says, he says, when he tells me the story, he says, Well, there's two things I could have done. I could have lied, which would have made it worse, or I could just tell the truth. And he's like, oh, that's my pipe. And she's like, why do you have this? And he says, because I like to smoke weed.
Well, there's the answer.
His mom got so mad, but his dad, who was like reading a newspaper, just kind of like put it up higher so that he wouldn't get in trouble for laughing.
Wait, but you could see the paper shaking?
He just kind of like pulled it up over his face like, uh-oh, my wife can't see me laughing at this.
You got it from somewhere, like father, like son.
Yeah.
It makes me think of a Christmas Story, when the kid swears in front of dad, and then the mom calls her friend and says, where did he hear such language? And you can hear the woman on the other end of the phone, if you listen carefully, go, I assume from his father.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that friend of yours, that's the person you smoked weed with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had he smoked weed for a long time before the first time you did it?
Yeah, for a few years probably.
Was he kind of excited that you were going to smoke weed with him?
Probably. He's probably like, okay.
And then was he like, that wasn't great?
Yeah.
Like, was he bummed when you didn't do it more?
No, I mean, we had fun. Like, we went out and did stuff, and we had fun night, but it was like, the way that I kind of saw it was like, I have fun when I don't do that stuff, like I do the same stuff, like,
So it wasn't I can just see that being, like, if this guy was really into weed and his good buddy isn't, and then his good buddy wants to do it could be like, yeah, cool. Yeah. But it seems to be like a lot of those stories end up being like, oh, not as cool as I thought it would be.
I don't know, maybe. You have to ask him on his podcast.
Wait, is he someone I'm going to have on?
No.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Okay, so that makes sense. I mean, I guess you are a teenager at a time when you can hear alternative music, you can hear punk rock music on MTV, on the radio. Things are a little more accessible. Mm-hmm. So it's not as I mean, still, I think it's funny that even though it was that much further along, the first thing that makes an impression on you is the first thing that makes an impression on me. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably 10 years older. Is that about right? I think that's probably about right.
38?
Oh, I'm less than 10 years older than you. That makes me feel happy. But it definitely, one, it speaks to how amazing the first Suicidal Tendency record is. But also, it's, I always look for that. I always look for those big moments, and maybe they're not as, there could just be someone who's just playing that music and you kind of get it by osmosis a little bit. Yeah. So that's very cool. I think I kind of get a sense of, I mean, skateboarding was something that kids in the neighborhood did, and you got into that. Did you ride BMX bikes too? You said you had a Huffy.
Yeah, no, I'd never had a Huffy. I had a Murray.
Oh, I'm so sorry. A Murray.
I rode it. I never got into serious. Like, I would ride around the neighborhood. We would ride real fast and then stick our feet in the little fork between the tires so that it would stop and do it. We called them endos. It was basically like pressing your front brake, but you didn't have front brakes because they were the backup to brake.
Sure.
So you just jam your foot in there, and sometimes if you're going too fast, you do a front flip, and it would hurt a lot. But
did you ever have any dreams of BMX racing?
No, not at all. It was just something we did, and I mean, there was a couple of jumps around because we lived by woods and apartments and stuff like that. So we would go off these jumps, but nothing serious.
All right. What about and then we'll get out of the young years. What about stuff like outdoorsy stuff? Were you a city kid, or did you do any kind of hunting, fishing, camping, that sort of thing?
We did some camping. Never hunting. This is just something I was never around. My dad definitely hunted with his father, but it didn't pass on. So, I mean, he would never go hunting alone or anything. So that was never something that I was around, but we would go camping, family adventure out to, whatever, Mount Rainier National Park or something. But yeah, but mostly it was a lot of just stuff in the neighborhood, riding bikes around, maybe a lot of swimming, going to the lakes and go swimming and stuff. But yeah.
Okay. And you're a pretty athletic guy now. Were you always an athletic kid? Did all this come pretty naturally to you?
I never played sports or anything in school.
High school, you didn't do any sports?
Well, I did. I wanted to play football when I was a junior, I think, in high school. And then I went, or maybe I was a sophomore, but I went for like a week, and then it was like spring training, and I was going to play football next season, but I basically had to decide between like after school job and being able to afford snowboarding.
Oh, right.
So it was either snowboarding or football for me, and that was an easy decision then. So
you chose snowboarding over football.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't blame you.
Yeah. So
but
what?
Oh,
yeah, before that, I mean, we would always like play football in the backyard, or smear the,
Wait, what did we used to call it when we were kids? I love it. Smear the
Yeah.
It was surprising to me. So I'm going to say this as what
sure.
it is. We used to play Smear the Queer.
Uh-huh.
And it was shocking to me as a little kid when I was first told that was something you shouldn't say.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then I didn't know what it meant. It just meant a word for the person you're going after in the thing, right? And I think it was my mom was probably like, no, you can't play that game.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Why? But of course now I look back and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But it was probably also the first time when I was like, when I felt in myself the revolt against like, no, that's what it's called. Yeah. I'm not going to change what I say because someone else doesn't like it. It's like, oh, okay, you got to learn that lesson. Some people never learn that lesson.
Yeah. I think the PC name for it was like Kill the Carrier.
Whoa, wait, you're saying that's better?
Well, you're carrying the ball, so like
I thought you meant like carrier. Like,
no, not
like disease,
sexually transmitted disease carrier.
Kill the carrier.
Although, maybe that's where it came from. If the other one was,
oh my God! Well, I immediately jumped to that. So wait, so it's the same game, same rules. Kill the carrier.
Whoever has the ball, you get them. Until they no longer have the ball, basically. That's the only rule.
Oh, okay. Maybe okay, so all of a sudden my childhood just got a little bit darker because I don't think we had a ball. I think we just ran after one kid and beat on him. And you hoped you weren't that kid.
Yeah.
They would just call you, and then you had to run until... And I don't think it passed to anyone else until you'd taken a beating.
No, we definitely had a ball. So if you didn't want to get, smeared... You could pass the ball off to some other poor kid and try to smear him.
Yeah. That's a very different game. When did you, so you listened to Minor Threat, skateboarding and all that, and you, I mean, you just kind of, probably your same buddy that had like Descendants and...
No. Actually, so he moved away like maybe 8th grade or so. So I think that's when I kind of started listening to some whack stuff. But then like Nirvana started happening, and like that stuff just seemed more like, I don't know, like real to me, So that kind of got me back into punk rock and like, hard music. I think I actually heard Fugazi before I heard Minor Threat, and that was like a skate magazine thing. Like I saw, like there was a, I don't remember who it was, but it says so-and-so drop, like the caption is so-and-so dropping a set of 8, an 8 set on the way to the Fugazi show or something like that. And that's how I heard about Fugazi. So I was like, oh, let's check this band out. And then later, like this girl that I was like trying to hang out with, she was from San Diego, and she used to hang out with like a bunch of skinhead dudes. And one of her old friends came up, and he was like, they used to run with like the San Diego, like Matt Hensley, like those dudes. And so he was up, and we went skating, and I was playing Fugazi, and he's like, hey, have you ever heard Minor Threat? And I was like, nah. And he's like, it's this dude's like old band, and he had the tape on him, and I put it in, and I was like, when I heard that, like that was everything changed. Like Suicidal for me, and like Descendants was cool because it was like angry, and I was just like, crazy kid, you know? But like when I heard Minor Threat, like to me that was like real rage. Just like the instant like I heard his voice, I was like, whoa, like this dude is pissed about something. Yeah. I had no idea what, but I was like, this is gonna be I knew then like this is gonna be like my new favorite band.
You know what's funny? I've never thought about this too much, but you're talking about California bands, right? And when like even if they're angry, there's still a California accent. There's still a, like when they curse, it kind of sounds like the Californian skit on SNL, right?
Yeah. It's like beach angry as opposed to like.
But when you hear an East Coast band, and the way they deliver the lyrics, the way they curse, it's harder.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
So Ian, I mean, I remember, and you know what's funny is I was just listening to a bunch of Minor Threat the other day. And I'm like, it seemed meaner and had with more cursing. I know there is a lot, but like I think in my head over the years I've just added I've added a lot of cursing to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember thinking, okay, my parents, I mean, even when I got into minor threat, I was even a bit older, but it's still like, no, they can't, no, this never gets played out loud. Because they're not gonna necessarily listen to the message. They're not gonna care about that. So I would listen to Agent Orange. Agent Orange, I could play out loud. So I'd listen, and then I'd put the headphones on, and it would be 7 seconds because there's gonna be a little more, cursing in 7 seconds. But okay, so you get into minor threat because the dude knows you like Fugazi. At which point after that do you connect with straight edge as a concept that you want to be a part of?
It's funny because I didn't really listen to the lyrics like super closely for a while, and for a while was probably like a month or two, but I didn't really understand what the song Straight Edge was about. Like Out of Step, definitely you can understand that one. There's not a lot of reading between the lines of that one, but by that point I had already decided kind of that I didn't really want to like smoke anymore, and I was hanging out with this other dude that like that's literally all he ever wanted to do was like smoke weed, drink. Like I would go hang out with him and his friend, and like we would hang out all night, and they would just drink 40s each, and like I would just hang out and like listen to music with them and smell absolutely horrible the next day because like my clothes were like drenched in cigarette smoke. But
somehow you were just immune to the peer pressure? Were you just the kind of guy when you'd say no, people wouldn't think to ask twice?
They would, but like the more that sometimes that they would like, be more assertive about it, the more I'd be like, no, I said no, like, I don't know.
It wasn't a front. You were you weren't gonna cave. So they must have just given up on it after a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right.
So, and I think at this point, like my friend that listened to kind of punk music was gone, and I kind of had to rediscover like punk rock by myself, really. Like there weren't any kids at my school that listened to that stuff. Like a lot of the skaters either listened to rap or they listened to like Smashing Pumpkins, stuff like that, which I thought was cool, but it wasn't. And I listened to it, don't get me wrong, I listened to it. I liked it, but like what I really liked was like, the angry stuff. So I was listening to like, stuff that I saw in snowboard videos, like Pennywise and, Rancid was a big one. Minor Threat was like the one that changed everything though. And then from there it was Gorilla Biscuits and Youth Today and, stuff like that.
But look, there's a jump from Minor Threat to Gorilla Biscuits because there's different time periods. But did you just find out about that the same way, or were you starting to meet straight edge kids? Or
it might have been that dude that I met at that party that got me into Gorilla Biscuits. Like it might, I think, thinking back now, it might have been like, oh, you like Minor Threat? You should check out Gorilla Biscuits. And when I did, like, that's the record really that like was it for me, And I got Youth Today, and it took me a while to like them. Like I couldn't really hang with the vocals at first.
I felt the same way.
Yeah, but it was funny because it was literally like overnight. Like one day I just popped it in and I was like, whoa, the voice is so cool. But before that I always thought it was like I don't know. But I would still listen to it because like, I mean, whatever, you'd work hard and buy records and you didn't know, or, not records, tapes, and you wouldn't know what they sound like. And if they were horrible, then, you have two decisions. You can either say, hey, that was a wasted money, or you can say, I'm gonna make myself like this.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot more value in this because I spent $3 on this. Damn it, that's
Strife was Strife for me. Like,
oh yeah,
I didn't really like them, but I made myself like them. I was like, I spent money on this. These dudes are straight edge. I'm straight edge.
One Truth.
Yeah,
the LV.
Yeah,
awesome. So okay, but there's a point where you said I'm straight edge.
Yeah, and I don't remember the date. I do remember the first show that I X'd up at.
Okay.
And that was, it was at the Lake City Community Center down in Lakewood, Tacoma. And it was, I think Balance of the World was the headliner. Trial, I think their demo had just come out.
Okay. Early Trial.
Yeah. I think the Darkest Days 7-inch, like the cover shot of Tim and there's like people singing along, I think that might have been that show.
Oh, okay.
Who else? Maybe Botch played too, but I went to a few shows at that place and around that era. But that was the first show I X'd up at, and then that was it.
You're like, oh, this feels pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I'll do this for the rest of my life.
It does look so cool on my hand.
And even then, it still wasn't really prevalent.
No, not at all.
Like it was, it less was known about it in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man, there's something to putting, that black X on your hand and being like, and I don't do it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done it for a long time because I'm in my 40s.
Yeah, sure.
But that's still every once in a while there's a reason for it, And but man, it felt bold. Like at 17 or something to do that.
Yeah. And my parents were probably, what does this dude have? Like, so right around that time, I also had this black hoodie that I went to like a fabric store or like a craft supply store, and I bought these like iron-on X's that I ironed onto the front of my my hoodie pouch. And
Nice.
I thought that looked so cool. Like, but I'm sure my parents were like, why does this guy have X, like triple X? Like, I don't know. But
and did you explain it to them and they were like,
no, I just,
oh, you did?
I didn't really like talk to them, it was just like in and out all the time. Like, it would blow them off.
Okay.
That's kind of
so they're just looking at you with concern.
Yeah. It's funny. One time my mom was like, are you ever going to like not be into this straight edge thing anymore? Like, like she didn't know what it was, but
how old were you?
Oh, I don't know, probably like 19 or something. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was funny that she would be advocating for me to not be straight edge because she didn't really know what that meant, But I just kind of thought it was funny, like, well, if you knew like what that entails, you probably.
Did she see something on the news? Is straight edge a gang?
No, this was before that, probably. The what was it, 60 Minutes or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys with swords.
Oh Jesus. All right, so we're kind of getting up to the place where we're gonna cross paths here, but so trial and balance of the world. We're talking about like 94. Was it?
It was a little bit later. I want to say it was either like late 95 or early 96.
Okay, and balance of the world was still playing.
Yeah, it might have been. It was probably late 95.
Okay,
because before that I went to like the first show that I probably like hardcore show, quote unquote, that I went to that I knew like the bands playing was the first Warped Tour. So like went to go see Sick of It All and Civ and Orange 9mm
and Quicksand
at
Seattle Center
and Sublime.
I
no use for a name.
The ones I don't remember.
L7 maybe.
That sounds right.
Yeah, No Doubt headlined.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they weren't even really that big yet. I didn't think. I don't know. Like they weren't like radio big yet.
Right.
But apparently they were bigger than Sick of It All, which their set was insane.
So wait, were you out in all that craziness when all the fights were happening, like during Quicksand?
Maybe, but I just was kind of oblivious to it, know? Like I was probably like circle pitting and like
there was a lot of fighting at that.
I'm
for
sure.
whatever reason. The different groups were not mixing very well.
That will happen. That will happen. I remember, so I had these kind of like random friends that weren't into music that I kind of got into, like punk music. And one of them was this big football player dude. Like he played football and rugby and he was huge and terrifying.
Yeah. And
also like not very smart. He was like a Neanderthal.
Okay.
And but loved him, But he listened to like Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and so that's how I kind of brought him in. I was like, "Yo, you should like."
Oh, he already listened to Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Yeah.
He didn't like pick Boss Tones from the stuff that you listened to.
No, like somehow he had a Mighty Mighty Boss Tones sticker on his car.
Nice.
And he wasn't really like he didn't hang out with the football dudes because he was too crazy. Like he's the kind of dude that would like just get in fights at the drop of a hat.
Right.
But I remember at Warped Tour, we brought him. He had to work that day. He worked at like a leather store, like a wallet store in the mall. Uh-huh. And the way that he got out of work that day was he climbed up on a ladder in the back room and fell off of it on purpose. It didn't occur to him that he could have just like knocked over some stuff and said that he fell off. He literally climbed a ladder and then fell off of it and was like, "Oh, I gotta go home."
So he actually injured himself.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. So was he like, "Yeah, this would be a lot more fun if my shoulder wasn't dislocated"?
He wasn't that messed up, but he was like, I mean, it was stupid, obviously. But so we went, And I remember there was at one point, because he was huge, and so he would circle pit, but he was also kind of a jock, you know, so he would circle pit, and anyone come near him, he would just like, boom, like just lay him out, right? Not like trying to fight, but just like, this is how you mosh, right? And so you would see the circle pit, and it would be one person on one side and like 18 people on the other side, like all trying to stay as far away from as possible. And we would just kind of like shake our heads and be like, oh man.
He was like the giant scary skinhead who wasn't a skinhead.
Exactly. He got held back in high school. And he, for some reason, thought that made him cooler than everyone else. Because he was like, I'm a senior. I'm a super senior. So he would like shoulder check people in the hallway and just like do weird things. And
like, are you going to mess with me? I'm the top dog. Oh no, I have more seniority.
Exactly.
And this
instead of being ashamed that, you know.
Right. Can I just do this at the community college?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So that's worked. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So we're at the same place there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you connect with the guys that I know now that became kind of
like Tori and Markley and those dudes?
Yeah.
So I would go to shows and I would drag along these dudes, like, you know, Stinky Sullivan was another one of them. You're laughing, but
no, so it's funny when you say it because it totally sounds like,
well, if you
Stand
remember,
By Me or something.
his real name's Chris Sullivan.
Yeah.
And you know, we skated and stuff, and he had one unfortunate day where he just stepped in dog crap. He stepped in throw up. He just stepped in a lot of like garbage, smelly stuff that day. And I think he had like Italian food for dinner, so he smelled like garlic. And so we started calling him Stinky, jokingly, but I think it was growing pains. Like the neighbor kid's name was Stinky Sullivan. And so like it stuck, and I still to this day, like probably like 25 years later, call him Stinky Sullivan.
Yeah, when a nickname hits, there's nothing you can really do.
Yeah, so I would drag those guys out to shows, and they were into it. Like obviously not as much, but like they were into it. They would come hang out, and they were real into the girls. So that was probably where that whole drama came. But
when you say those guys, you mean you'd bring like Markley and Tori?
No, not yet. So we would go to shows, but we didn't know anyone. And then I think there was a 7-second show at the Pioneer Square Theater where I saw Markley and Tori. And I used to see Markley at shows all the time, and he was a punk rocker and had like a mohawk and like a bone, like ivory choker thing that he wore. And so I would see him around at shows. And then that show, he was like total like straight edge dude, like hoodie and like black X's, and Tori was there, and I kind of recognized him, but I didn't like talk to him. And then the next night we were at Sherry's, which is like a Denny's, and they walk in with Kevin Williams, and like I think I had probably like my XXX, you know, hoodie, and they walked by, and I was like, oh, that's those dudes. And like then one of them comes back, Kevin comes back, he's like, are you guys straight edge? And yeah, that's how it happened. We just we're like, oh, come to our table, come hang out.
You were flying the flag.
Yeah.
So you had a Sherry's night.
And then another dude that I started hanging out with at that same point, I don't know if you remember Jeff Boltz.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I worked at the dollar store, and he worked next door at the QFC. And one time I was probably like listening to Trial or whatever, and he comes walking in, and he's like, are you listening to Trial? And then we became friends, and so that's kind of how like that group of dudes started like coming around, I guess. So, and then we would go and bring like lots of candy.
Because you were working at the dollar store.
Yeah. I think probably what happened was like the dudes that had the candy knew that the girls like wanted it. And so like from your perspective, like all these older dudes were probably like, oh, stupid kids. But like we probably actually deserved it.
Wait, you're saying that you agree you were annoying?
Yeah, for sure.
I hope I can put my hands on that picture. I knew where it was not too long ago. Yeah, the original. I don't know if you're in it though. It might just be Markley and Tori.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then when did you start playing music?
A couple years after. I mean, we kind of screwed around, me and Markley and Tori, and Jeff Boltz playing drums. And Markley started singing for this band that we were doing. And then Markley stopped being straight edge for the first time. First time that we know about. So then I started singing for this band called Guideline.
Okay.
I don't know. It started like almost the exact same time that Champion started. And Jeff was originally playing in both bands. But then we got this kid, Joe. Do you remember Deadlock from Spokane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Their drummer was going to move to Seattle. He later played in
the band. Sorry. The band Deadlock.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking Chris for something.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Cool. Chris played bass in that band.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's where the name comes from. Okay.
I want to say that Joe might have been in These Arms Are Snakes for a little bit.
Oh. Okay.
Or one of those bands like around that era, but later on, obviously. But
right.
So he moved to Seattle, and we wanted to be in a band with him. So we were like, "Hey Jeff, do you want to just play in one band instead too?" And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." And then Jeff ended up like selling his drums or something, and then so that band just died, and then Champion kept going for years and years and years.
So when did you join Champion?
OG member, me and Jim.
You and Jim were the first two?
Well, it was me, Jim, Eagle Barber, Ben Colton, and I believe Jeff was there. It was the day after that 10-yard fight show at Big John's house.
Okay.
It was a 10-yard fight and fast break and Built to Last. And we all kind of like, that's like the kind of music that we got into hardcore through. And like in that time, it was like, I want to say it was probably like 98. So like Trial was a band, and they were like the closest thing to like that kind of thing for us. But we really love like Gorilla Biscuits and like Youth of Today and that kind of like the Youth Crew stuff. And so we wanted to
And there wasn't a lot going on in the Northwest at the time.
No.
Everybody had grown up a little bit and started playing, except for Trial.
Mm-hmm. And even Trial, like, you know, don't get me wrong, I love Trial, but like they were a little bit more metal than we wanted to be.
Right.
And so when we saw like 10-yard fight and fast break, we were just like, we want to do a band that sounds like that, you know? So that's what kind of when it happened. Was the next day there was a barbecue on the roof of the old Gauntlet spot. I don't know if you've ever been there, but Jeff and Juan lived in like a converted tattoo shop that was converted into a loft, and we would have barbecues on the roof there. It was like off of Broadway.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so there was a huge barbecue on the roof with like 30 people. And that's when we kind of started talking about it. And Jim and I were going to go on tour with Trial and left with nothing. So this is kind of an embarrassing story, but needs to be said. So when we had this idea of starting this band, it didn't have a name yet, but we were like, yeah, we got to have this band. And Jim and I are going on tour, so we need to do something to spread the word about this band. So we went downstairs into a room that no one was in. We put on guitars and we took pictures of each other like jumping in the air with these guitars. And we were going to make stickers at Kinko's so that we could like put them up while we were on tour. The extra funny thing about this was in one of the pictures, Eagle didn't have his bass plugged in, like there wasn't a cord. And so we're like, oh no, what are we going to do? People are going to know these are fake pictures.
Wait, so it was the whole band that faked it?
No, I think it was just me and Eagle.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
around.
you, Jim.
No, I don't think we had any, because we didn't have a microphone, obviously.
Okay.
But so we're jumping around, taking pictures. But Eagle didn't have his bass plugged in. And we were like, what? This is a problem. I got the film developed. What are we going to do? So we went to Kinko's. I photocopied the picture of him jumping with the bass, and I drew with a felt tip pen a little cord, even had like a little like a curly Q in it. And we made these stickers.
It didn't look real.
It looked,
because it's a photocopy of a picture, right?
Oh yeah, because I mean, you know, Kinko's like photocopy stickers. It looked real enough that like you wouldn't really look at it. But
do you still have one of those stickers in your life anywhere?
I don't think so, but I wish that
I need a picture of that.
Yeah.
I need that sticker for the blog page.
Yeah, I know someone has to have them. Like, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, those were the roots of Champion.
And then how many? So then you kept doing that for? Well, wait, that was 98.
Might have been 99 by then. No, I think it was 98. Because
so Champion's run as a band was about 6 years. Wait,
no.
When? Oh no, longer. When did it end?
We broke up in like 2006, I think.
Okay,
so maybe 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, but the first like, you know, 4 years or so was like constantly revolving like cast of characters. So like we never really like, we did one like tour in probably 99 off like our first crappy demo that we did when like none of us had ever played any instrument in any band before except for Eagle. So that was that demo. And then, so we went on that tour. I think Joe had quit the band and Eagle's like, oh, my best friend from Arkansas is moving here. Like, let's get him in the band. And, we're like, okay, cool. So he gets in the band. We go on tour. This is Eagle's best friend. They fight the whole time. And like by the end of the tour, Eagle quit the band and was out of Champion. And then this dude was like, well, I guess I'm moving back to Arkansas.
Oh, Jesus.
So after our first tour, we lost, 2 dudes. And then, from there it was like, I mean, I want to say, Bill Quimby played one show with us, which is hilarious.
Nice. Bill Quimby, ever present. So I remember the early days of Champion, and just like any early band, I remember people were kind of like, I don't know. I mean, certainly people that
was horrible.
I'm being diplomatic here, but you know what I mean? Like,
it was horrible, but it was fun.
Especially when it gets to the point where you've seen a lot of different iterations of bands happen, But then this thing happened where Champion and Stay Gold were both kind of rising at the same time.
Yeah, that was much later. I mean...
That was much later. Yeah. We're getting around, like 2002?
Probably somewhere in there.
2001, 2002? But it got to the point where you guys were getting better every show. Like, every show was better than the last. And it seemed like you guys and Stay Gold would play together. And I always felt it was like competition between friends to try to put on, like, friendly competition. Ram kind of had a problem with my describing it this way. So I want to know what you think of that. Did you feel that was the case?
I don't know. I never felt like there was like a... I don't even know how to say it, but like it wasn't like a mean rivalry by any means. Like it was definitely like we were always like pushing each other to like be, the best we could be. And like, we would push them hard and they would push us hard. And,
but it got results.
Yeah. And Himsa was another one too that like at the same time, like when we played our Counter Numbers record release, which was our second 7-inch, the one that came out on Bridge 9, Himsa played and Stay Gold played. And, like, I remember, like, looking out, like, I think it was during Himsa, like, looking out, and this was when Pettibone was singing, and, like, their first record maybe had just come out with him singing, and I remember, like, looking out at the Paradox and seeing, like 200 kids there, probably, maybe 3, and for, like, an all-local show, like, that was insane. Like, I just remember, like, looking out and being like, whoa, like,
that
this
Paradox
is, like,
scene got fantastic.
It was awesome, yeah.
I feel there were people who missed that.
Yeah.
People who
it was so cool.
Had just kind of moved on from hardcore a little bit and didn't know when the roots were, when the seeds were sprouting, man. And like all this really cool stuff was happening. So that period of time where the Paradox was in the U District before it moved down to Ballard and became Mars Hill.
Yeah.
Which is a really
hilarious.
Wow.
Like how did that happen? Wasn't like Wally like involved with the church there originally or something? Like he booked the shows, but like
I think so.
Yeah, but they went way left field. But yeah, the old spot was awesome. Like
and the theater, they were having church at that theater in the U District, and the thing was always there's no crossover. It's just a space that's available. Yeah. There's not going to be any proselytizing. There's not going to be any trying to make these punk rock shows a church event.
Yeah.
And then once they actually got that shiny new building down in Ballard, it's like, no, it's still going to be exactly the same. But then there was this point, like a year later, where someone was at a meeting. I feel like it was Ryan Flaherty told me this. Someone told me that they were at a meeting and the person said, "What are we getting out of this?" And I was like, "It's over.
Yeah.
It's all."
It was instant. But there were some fun shows there too. Even like we had our Promises Kept record release show. I mean, Stay Gold's last show was there.
And this was at Mars Hill Church in Ballard. Yeah. But they were not Mars Hill events. They were just like using a space
that was available. What is that band that Mexi Mike and Neil of Steel were in? That was like fireworks and eggs and toilet paper.
Abraham Lincoln Killing Machine.
Yes.
By the way, that's one of the last Excursion releases.
Was it? Yep. That was one of the last shows at Mars Hill too. Coincidentally.
So, also, that show is responsible for Trial coming back.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because they had Greg Bennick get up in costume as Abraham Lincoln and read his Declaration of whatever, Emancipation Proclamation. But it was some hardcore thing. And I was standing right next to Masha Kid, Matt Weltner from The Answer and he's other bands. But we're standing there, and they hadn't told Greg that Tim was going to get on stage and play. They were going to do one cover. And so Greg wasn't into. You were at the show. You know what I'm talking about, but I'm just describing it for everybody else. If you're into Trial, so Greg gets done with what he thinks is going to be his sole purpose there, and then they just as a band start playing the song, and he goes nuts, and everyone went crazy. And Matt just took his glasses off and dropped them on the ground and ran. I had to pick them up. I'm like, wow, he was willing to just like lose a pair of glasses to go up front.
He would leave his glasses everywhere.
Okay, like, that wasn't abnormal?
No.
Because I always thought it was very funny that he was just like, goodbye.
No, he... Okay, I'm bridging from one story, which there's a bunch of funny stories from that show, but when Matt was booking shows at the West Seattle Legion Hall, and he would leave his glasses like on the merch table, but like not like off in the corner. Like the merch tables would kind of come out and form a peninsula where you would have to go by where his glasses were to get to like the pit area.
Yeah,
and he would just leave them on the end of the table, and so I always thought it was weird that he would just leave them like not even kind of tucked away, like just on the edge of the table. So I would take them and I would hide them. And then I would watch as he like half blind, like feeling around, like he would come up to the table and put his hands on the table and like feel around. But the best story of this was, it must have been around Christmas or something, because I had wrapping paper in my car. And he took his glasses off, and his band, I don't know if it was The Answer or No Return, one of those two bands was playing. And it was probably The Answer.
Was this West Seattle?
Yeah.
Could have been Vanguard.
He was singing.
Okay.
So I want to say he was singing. Maybe he wasn't. But anyways, it was his birthday. And so I took his glasses, I went out to my car, and I put them in a box, and I wrapped them up. And he's playing a show, and I come in, and he's giving a speech in the middle between a song, and I come up to him and I give him this box. I like interrupt his speech and give him this present. And he's like, "Oh, my friend Chris just gave me a present." And he's so excited, and he starts opening it up, and he looks inside, and he just has like the ultimate look of disappointment on his face, just like. And then I think he just said, "My friend Chris is an asshole." And then they went into the next song.
My glasses. All right, so that's getting a little. I do think that's ahead of where we were at. I remember distinctly you leaving to go out with Good Clean Fun. Did you play?
Yeah, so I filled in on guitar for them. I don't remember how it happened. Like we were talking to Mike, I think, about putting out our record. Or maybe we wanted him to put out our record, and then after we went on tour, then he kind of felt obligated to or something. I don't know. But so yeah, I filled in on guitar for him. I wasn't vegan. Still am not vegan. Still am not vegetarian. Never was. So we're on tour. We play like the first show in Bellingham, and I don't even know, like a burger or something. And like Issa looks at me and he's like, are you eating a burger? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you know we're a vegan band, right? And I'm just like, what? No one told me you were a vegan band. But
I just thought you were a straight edge band.
Well, no, he's like, but we have songs about it. And I was like, you have songs about a lot of things that are like, like, how am I supposed to know that veganism and straight edge, like, you actually are those things? Oh, by the way, the drummer and other guitar player that were filling on that tour were not straight edge, so I don't know if the veganism thing was an issue. But so I was like, well, I'll eat vegan on the tour, just to like kind of.
Oh, so you went vegan for the tour?
Yeah,
as a support for the band.
Yeah, just kind of like, I don't know.
Okay, let me ask: were the two non-straight edge people straight edge for the tour?
No. Well, I mean, maybe. I feel like one of the dudes smoked, but
that's kind of hard to stop.
Yeah,
I think people are.
It took me so long to buy food. Because imagine like a non-vegan dude on tour, like, oh, let's see, I'm at a gas station, what should I eat? Let's see, is this vegan? Crab milk.
What were you just getting, like?
I don't even remember, but like
vegetable plates.
It would take me so long just to go in and have to, like, I was always the last person in the van, and they probably were like, what is he doing in there? But
So wait, so they were basically saying you can't stay on the tour unless you...
No, they didn't say that, but I kind of like, I don't know. I kind of felt like if that was something that they were going to like, that they stood for, that I would like respect that kind of. So Champion actually had our second demo.
Yep.
Our first decent demo. and I brought a bunch of those on tour and like sold them all and met some really cool people, played some awesome shows. I think, I exchanged demos with like the drummer from the First Step. So like that was like the connection I made there. Saw Carry On, American Nightmare, some awesome bands on that tour. It was a lot of fun.
Right, so. And those are connections that lead to a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So Champion and Stay Gold are playing these shows. Stay Gold only went so far, and it kind of died out. And then Champion, you guys just took the ball and ran with it. Mm-hmm. And you ended up with Tim from Trial in the band, which must have been a real trip.
Yeah. Well, so at this point, Trial was kind of broken up. We still didn't really know what we were doing. And Tim probably was just like, oh, these guys are nice. I don't have anything better to do. And so that was like a real turning point for us because like he would kind of show us things like, oh, well, you should practice your picking. Like you and I should get in a room and sit down and make sure we're doing the exact same picking. Like stuff like that like I think really like exponentially advanced like where the band was.
Right. Tighten stuff up.
Yeah. I think he probably like helped Jim kind of like work on some lyrics too. Or like, well, they would sit down and Jim would have his lyrics and then, he'd be like, oh, what about this? And like helping piece things together. I think,
then it becomes a real collaborative songwriting effort, which is...
Yeah. And the drums was another thing too. He would be like, hey, we're doing this. So instead of doing this up here, why don't you go down to the floor, Tom? Like stuff like that we didn't even know. It was just like, oh, he's keeping a beat. Isn't that what drummers do? So yeah, I think that like really helped us kind of like, I guess, step up, at least like the bass line. So.
And then a Ram came along and joined the band.
Yeah, and he was playing bass first because Ben quit for the, I don't know, first time maybe. Ben was in the band 3 times, as was Nick Platter. Both were in Champion the most amount of times.
Right. But see, the funny thing is that most people that aren't from the Northwest think of Champion as kind of being a core group of people. Mm-hmm. But it was a real revolving door up here, wasn't it?
It was, but I mean, once we had that core group of people, that's when we were able to like, it's so hard to find like 5 dudes that are on the same page, like musically, socially, like,
and straight edge,
straight edge,
which was
like,
very important for that band.
Yeah, it was. And there were times where there was a time where we probably didn't have a drummer for like maybe almost a year. So we didn't do anything. We would just go to Tim's house. We'd sit in his tiny little room and like work on practicing picking and like write songs, but like we didn't have a drummer. And that's when we magically met Todd one night.
That was a good connection.
Yeah, he's a fantastic drummer. Todd was in the band twice.
Yeah. And straight edge.
Yep.
Okay, so a Ram gets in the band. There's some kind of it's not the final lineup change, but it seemed to be a big rotation is when Tim left the band.
Yeah.
And a Ram moved to guitar. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, you guys just really took off.
Yeah, we still had
you were already moving that way.
Mm-hmm. We still had a pretty revolving cast at bass. Like at one point, like Pettibone was going to play bass for us. I don't know if you knew that or not, but
that's awesome.
He did not have one single practice with us, but we did, as cheesy as this is, we did a photo shoot for Hardcore Inc., the hardcore tattoo magazine.
This is the same. I remember the Hardcore Inc. thing, but you are the band that went and took fake photos and had to draw in the bass chord. Yep. So now you've got Pettibone in the band, and he's never practiced with you. Mm-hmm. Okay,
we never let things like that get in our way.
No, and you stayed a band for a year without a drummer, getting together and practicing writing songs, but not being able to play them. I mean, that's like there's a will there at work.
It was hard too because we could have found a drummer that wasn't straight edge and. That's just not something that we wanted to do, So it was definitely tough though. Like, I don't know. So yeah, Pettibone was in this picture and had tattoos in he probably had the most tattoos in the band too. Cause like this was before Ram had like sleeves. So he had like scattered tattoos and
sure.
Jim probably had like 3 or 4. I had none. I think Ben was in the band. No, Ben wasn't, because Pedwan would have been playing bass. So
Right.
Todd had a few. I don't know why they wanted us in there. We didn't have any good. No one in the band had a good tattoo, probably. But at that point, but yeah. So he was in the band, but then he never came to practice, and so he just became the dude in the picture that looks like Davey Havoc. That
Now, was this
wasn't actually in the band.
Was that after the last time Ben quit? Because okay, so you took
I don't think so.
you took me and you took Adam Pacey with you on tour in 2003 in the summer.
Yeah.
We went out for like 2.5 weeks or something like that, and it was phenomenal. And it was just awesome. You guys brought me along. We played Posi numbers, played Hellfest, ended up doing merch for you guys, and it was, oh my god, Hellfest merch is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. It was insane.
Appropriately named.
It was hell, and also like stuff had been delivered. Shirts and hoodies and things had been delivered, and Hellfest was so big that there were like, everyone had like a table space that was like mapped out, and we got there and it was all just stacked up underneath. And I remember we got there and people were just already lined up to buy your stuff. And it was a total merch machine, except we didn't know sizes, what boxes they were in. So I spent all of Hellfest just digging in boxes, like with and there was no place to stand.
Yeah.
It was like kind of half standing on a box with kids getting all pissed off. Why is it taking so long?
Yeah.
That was a great trip though.
It was fun.
We ended up, something happened to the van, and we ended up going out in Most Precious Blood's van.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
So
that
cool.
It was able to just, well, that's hardcore, right? I mean, you go all the way across the country, your van breaks, and another band were they in Europe?
I think so, maybe.
And they and Tim, their roadie, was there, and he said, "Hey, I'll call those guys and see if it's cool." And those dudes were just like, "Oh yeah, that band from from Seattle, Champion, yeah, just take our van."
Yeah, we played with them a couple times, and they were one of those bands that there's always bands that you don't really think you would hit it off with, just based on like how different their sound is than yours, and then you do, and it's just like, whoa, like we're best friends, and like. I think we played like 2 shows with them, and we were like awesome friends already. And we still weren't that close, but we knew that we really liked each other. And then that's when that happened. And like we were definitely not close enough friends that they should have let us borrow their van. Like it was very cool.
It totally saved the day. Yeah, which was super cool. Yeah, that was a very cool tour, and it was nice to people. That was almost 10 years. It was 10 years after going out doing the country with Undertow. And one thing that was really surprising was we spent quite a bit of time in New York. And when I was with Undertow 10 years before so seeing New York 10 years later and how different it was.
Oh yeah, I'm
it
sure.
was so much more cleaned up.
Yeah.
Definitely kind of a trip.
Yeah. That was fun. It was a lot of fun.
But you guys that was also, that was before the LP. I think the second, the Bridge 9 record had just come out. So that's right.
I feel like something came out at Hellfest, maybe. Like maybe we got something at Hellfest. Maybe the LP. Does that sound right? Because I remember we were sitting next to, I think it was like Hawthorne Heights or someone that became huge. And we got our first record the same day that they got theirs.
I wasn't there. It was okay. The LP was like a year after.
Okay. Were you at the Hellfest in the bubble or the outside one?
Outside, I think.
Oh, okay.
We were in a tent. It was covered, but it was. I thought it was covered. The merch tent we were in, but
so it must have been the next year that Promises Kept came out, and we got.
Well, I can tell you that the Posi Numbers press of the second 7-inch that had the black cover with like the eagle tattoo design. That was what came out.
Okay.
On that, we got them at Posi Numbers, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So the LP, I think, is still a year away. But man, I have really, really good video footage taken. Adam Pacey was filming it. No, I filmed it. Pacey was in the crowd. Pacey was losing his mind.
Was he?
And remember the crowd was just hitting you guys almost like a wave. Now, this is going to be the Damien thing. Damien was talking about how he would talk about how crazy Undertow shows were and then see, try to show his friend video and they'd be like, what? That doesn't look that exciting. So in my mind, I'm desperately clinging to the edge of the stage, filming as waves of kids are like smashing against you guys. But remember, it was pretty crazy.
That was probably the craziest show we've ever played. Like,
okay, so I'm gonna try to digitize that footage. I'll try to get it up on YouTube.
The video footage looks crazy too, if I can remember it correctly.
I think my camera shut down because of like because of like just sweat and steam and stuff at one point. It was just like, man, shut up. It was hot. It was nuts.
Dude, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just remember looking over at Ben, just looking at everybody, and everybody was having a good time. And it was, you guys were riding that line between this is amazing and we're gonna die. Like our stuff is gonna get broken.
Yeah.
Like
there were definitely times that people were diving off of my amp over me onto the crowd, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. and it was like, that's hardcore. To me, that is hardcore. That's what you shoot for. You go years in between waiting for that show where you can see everybody lose their minds. Yeah. And so I always get like, I realize guitars are expensive, amps are expensive. Whenever I see someone get upset because someone bumped into them, I'm like, why are you doing this?
It's so lame.
Come on. Yeah. So I've seen some guitarists throw fits at hardcore shows, and it's like, wrong. Well, you're in the wrong place. Because the best thing that would happen is if this crowd went 10 times as crazy.
Yeah, dude. If you remember, the first day we got to Posi Numbers the day before, and they had these PAs set up on the side of the stage, and kids were diving off them, constantly diving, and we were just watching it, going like, dude, I can't play tomorrow. Like kids are gonna be flying off these things, and so we come out the next day, and both of the PAs are moved to the back of the stage, and we're just so bummed because the stage is like not even knee high. It was like maybe a foot off the ground.
Right.
And like we were really psyched about just insane stage dives. That's what we wanted. And like the PAs were moved to the back, and we were just like, this sucks. There's not going to be any stage dives. So our solution to this was we were either this tour or before we were on tour with Death Threat. And
no, Death Threat was with us.
Yeah. And so we asked Steve.
It was Death Threat, Terror, and Champion.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we asked Steve from Death Threat. We're like, hey, this is kind of a crazy question. Because his bass cabinet was the kind, not the one piece, it was the two piece. So, like 2 half stacks. And we're like, can we borrow your bass cab, but not to play? Can we just put one half on each side of the stage on the front so that kids can dive off of it? And we asked him thinking like, there's no way this dude's gonna let us like just use his cabinets as stage dive launching pads. And he's like, yeah, totally, go ahead. And yeah, it just helped, I think.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So if you see the video, you can see kids kind of like, there wasn't enough room to like run and jump off it, but you could see kids get up on it and kind of like roll over onto the crowd.
That's, I think, why I had the idea that it was a wave, because people were trying to kind of get onto the stage, but there was no room on the stage. And then the crowd would push forward, and then everyone that was like trying to stand and sing along or jump back off this 1 foot stage would get pushed into you. Yeah. And I was like, it all had to like, you know, the key was keep everybody off the drums if possible, right?
Yeah. And then there was one point where Todd dove off of the drums into the crowd in the middle of the song.
That's right. He jumped over his drum set into the crowd. Hey, if you're listening to this, if you know about hardcore, then you understood what we just said. If you don't know, if you don't listen to music where people get so excited that the drummer will abandon the drums by jumping over them into the sea of the crowd because that's how cool it is right at the moment, you just haven't lived. That's why we love hardcore.
Yeah. It was funny too because I think we all saw Todd, and Todd had nice like drums, so we all kind of saw him like dive like Superman style, and we thought like, is he maybe going after some kid? Because kids were like jumping off his bass. So we kind of were like, this is awesome, but we're also kind of like, is Todd trying to like kill someone right now because they dove off his bass?
This could be excitement or it could be murder. That was a really good time, you know. I've been lucky to have bands take me out and let me see stuff like that on the road. It's just really fantastic. And I really appreciated that you guys did that. And the other thing that's cool is I really felt like, I mean, you guys were just upping the game constantly. Things were just getting better and better. And it had already been happening in Seattle, but there were still people here that hadn't seen you for a couple of years. Older guys that don't get out to as many shows. And I'd be like, oh, Champions. And they'd be like, Champion? Because they're remembering the demo or they're remembering, you know, Iteration 5 back or whatever. So I'd be like, oh, no, you got to see it. That's, you know, but after that, it was like, it felt like if I was going to go see a Champion show, I was going to see a spectacle every time. And you guys were also known for being kind of lunatics. Who is it? Is there one person in the band that was responsible for all of the Champion, like the things like the road games and the songs and the
No,
Is
I think
it
we just
you?
kind of like fed off each other.
Okay, so if you're the one that
Yeah.
says no, then it's probably you're the main instigator.
Maybe. I think it was just kind of like I mean, the more you drive long drives and don't have anything to do, the more stupid things you're going to do to like occupy time. Like there's a video on YouTube of the band Down to Nothing where they're videotaping themselves driving, and they're listening to Hatebreed, and they just start moshing in the van, and they start ripping things apart. And they're like, sacrifice something to the tour gods. And someone will take like their hat and rip it in half, or take like the shirt they're wearing and just rip it to shreds. And it's insane. Like that's the kind of stuff that you do when you're bored on tour. I think every band has games.
But you guys created a real game, a game that was really something. Classic Combinations.
That's a good one.
Do you want to explain Classic Combinations?
Oh boy. How much time do we have?
Who came up with not much? Who came up with Classic Combinations?
Classic Combinations is I want to say maybe I started kind of talking about it. It was in Germany. We were driving somewhere, and I think we just started talking about it, and then we just started making up these rules of this game, and it would take me like 15 minutes to explain all the rules. If you go to, I have a blog called seekersofthecore.com. If you go to that, I actually have a blog post. You have to scroll way down to the bottom, but because it's one of the first ones I did. But it basically involves you beating each other. And
now there's two sets of numbers.
Well,
is that what happens? You pick numbers.
All right. So let me try to explain it without going into too much detail. But basically, it's played in rounds, and there's one person that chooses some combinations, and the combination would be like, okay, Dave, my fist, your thigh,
okay,
or my open hand karate chop to your sternum,
okay,
my foot to your shin,
okay.
The only things that were off limits was anything in the balls or punching closed fists in the face. And then you would play it in rounds, and the chooser would pick one of those three combinations, and it wouldn't have to be.
Oh, so you give options.
Yeah, there would be three options, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be the person that's choosing. It could be like, Dave, my open hand fist to a ram's buttocks.
Okay.
Or one that happened once was Justin, our old roadie from Florida. He said, open hand slap to Todd's face to backhand slap to a ram's face. There's actually a video of this, and you see a ram like fall out of the video. It's pretty funny.
Okay.
But, so you have to pick one of these combinations.
But the combination is only part of it.
Mm-hmm. There's a power scale. So you have to pick a number between 1 and 10. But you don't know. Part of the game is there's also an impartial third party that
impartial third party.
All these people had names. Like the person that was actually inflicting the harm was the aggressor.
The aggressor. Okay.
I don't remember what the chooser was. It might have been just the chooser. But the impartial third party, the aggressor would whisper power scale 10 or power scale 1.
Right.
To the person. And if they said 10, that would mean 10 is the hardest and 1 is the softest. If they said power scale 1, that means 1 is the hardest and 10 is the softest. So you could pick something, and you wouldn't know if you were about to see one of your friends punch another friend as hard as they can or as soft as they can.
So wait, so you were choosing the combination, and then you also had to choose a power scale on a number between 1 and 10?
Yeah.
And you didn't know... You would never know whether the scale meant 10 was hardest or 10 was lightest. Yeah. And so the impartial third person would then tell...
No, they wouldn't know. The impartial third party would never say anything. Oh. They just were kind of to keep the aggressor honest.
That was, okay, that was to verify what was said ahead of time. Yeah. So the impartial third party could just nod, could just go, mm-hmm. So if it was like... So if it was like, if the slap was power 10 and they chose 10,
the impartial third party knows they're going to see something pretty interesting, and you just try to keep a straight face,
and everyone just did it
away. Jim, I think, abstained from it.
Oh, you could abstain?
Jim is definitely the temper, the person in the band with the temper, and so he, probably rightfully so, did not play the game.
Didn't want to play because he would hold it against somebody.
or he would just punch him back or something. I don't know. This was when he invented his fake dogma of pagan pacifism.
What? Jim had okay. Yeah. Tell me about.
He would just say, "Oh, I can't play. I'm a pagan pacifist." Which, if you know Jim, he's definitely not a pacifist. He's actually like one of the toughest dudes I know. But so yeah.
I was told more than once that you were definitely the toughest guy in Champion.
Definitely not. Like, if it was a real fight, like, Jim would destroy me. But
I was told, it's weird. I thought that didn't everyone in Champion try to fight you once and you beat them all?
There were 2 nights.
I think you're being modest.
Yeah, maybe. But I think what happened was I told them, like, no, if you guys do this, I'm going to really, like, punch you or really. So they would, like, come at me like half speed and I would come at them like full speed and just be like, well, I warned you kind of thing. There was definitely one where they came at me with like and I had a skateboard and I was like, if you come at me, I'm gonna hit you with the skateboard. And
that's the story I heard. That's the story I heard.
And they're like, he's not really gonna do it. I was like, no, I'm dead serious. I will hit you with the skateboard. I hit a ram in the hip because he was the first one that came at me. And then John 8-Clip, the dude that sang in Allegiance, he came at me and I hit his hand and broke it.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So there's an Allegiance song where there's a line that says like a broken hand and some damn good bands or something like that. That's songs about that tour. But I kind of felt bad, but like at the same time, I kind of like didn't, you know? Like I felt bad that I broke it, but I was like,
you did what you said.
Yeah. And everyone was like, I can't believe you did that. And Carrie Fiegel was just like, he told you he was going to do it. Like, you guys are stupid. He told you. So,
nice.
Yeah. So that's that story.
Okay, so that, you know.
One more thing, though.
Oh,
sorry. Yeah. Going back to classic combinations. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it, but now that we have, I have to complete this.
I love classic combinations.
There's politics involved with classic combinations because you play it in rounds.
Okay.
So, if you, Dave Larson, say, I'm going to pick kick to a ram's shin at a power level of 10, if he really gets kicked as hard, if someone kicks him as hard as he can, I know that eventually it's going to be a ram's turn to choose.
Oh, right. Right. So, you have to play. If you're in for the whole round.
Yeah.
So he could set me up for something.
Yeah. So there were definitely politics involved. And if you really wanted to play it safe, you would pick something on yourself, like power level of 5. But yeah, it usually didn't happen. But I think the hardest thing, I slapped Todd in the face at an 8 out of 10. And he had a hand mark on his face for a while. And then the other thing was our driver in Germany was this gigantic German man that they called Dr. Payne. Because he just is a human, like, freak of nature giant. And he stomped at on a ram's foot at, like, a power level of, like, 7 out of 10. And I was in the other room, like, checking my email, and I felt, like, the reverberations in the room, and Aram was, like, limping for a couple days.
I would think that wouldn't be the best game to play away from, like, you know, home where you could get medical help.
Yeah, especially the Canadian who gets free healthcare.
That's a good point.
But we probably actually would be better off, and we Americans would probably be better off in Germany getting hurt than here.
Oh, well, I think that's very much true. Michael Ann, you know, she's a tour guide. She takes people to France, and she had a person over there who was very political, and this was a few years ago, so it was right before a whole Obamacare thing and everything, and they were one of the people was this story has actually been published at her works like blog, so I'm not giving away any. I'm not speaking out of class, whatever, but guy was, you know, she's given her overview, telling people how everything works, and the guy's making snide comments about socialist country and all that, and she's kind of correcting him a little bit, but he was a real, like, Tea Party kind of sort, you know, and that guy's wife had a heart attack on the tour and ended up having to go to the hospital in France for care in the middle of the night. And apparently he was completely floored at the level and quality of care and all that stuff. And then couldn't believe, like, there was a bill, right? Because they don't have insurance or anything, right? And couldn't believe how cheap it was. And Michael was like saying, like, how much would that have been in America?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I can't even, you know.
The ambulance drive would have been more expensive.
Yeah. And I guess it was some manageable amount. And so he was like, what do I do? And she's like, you pay him. Like, because the other thing about it is, if they had just left and gone back to America, no, it's not like there'd be bill collection.
French collection agency.
But it's just kind of that story. Yeah, because you bring up the band would be better off in Germany if you'd gotten injured. That's true. Yeah. But it's also funny. There's also a little bit of whatever you. It should be a lesson to everybody. If you complain really loud about something, it's coming for you.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Like, I don't know why that is, but it's like every anti-gay bigot in the country ends up with
Ashley Madison.
Or someone in the family comes out of the closet. It's just how it always works.
Yeah, or they're forced out of the closet.
Oh, well, that's a whole different. I wasn't even meaning that side of it, but yeah. Oh, it goes that horrible hole goes deep.
Yeah,
Ashley Madison. Oh, this in the months coming, this story will probably make less sense. But yeah, right now the Ashley Madison hack just happened, and a whole bunch of people are getting called out for having accounts on a website that was just for committing adultery. They say 400 different pastors in America and Canada are going to resign from their job on Sunday.
Wow.
Because they all had accounts. Did you hear that story?
I didn't. I heard 2 people allegedly commit suicide.
Oh.
Which is a bummer.
Come on. That's...
Yeah. Sorry to bring it there. Well, I did hear, which is, this one's funny.
Not, oh, come on for telling me that, but just, oh, come on to everybody. That's a little bit extreme to be caught up over. One, most of these people weren't even having sex. It was more just like looking. They say that there were 5.5 million female accounts on Ashley Madison, and they said they think there were only actually 12,000 active female
or
users.
legit ones.
Yeah. Yeah. It was all just BS. It was a bunch of guys talking to a bunch of guys, which sums it up pretty well. What were you going to say? Tell me the good story.
No, that's what I was actually going to say. The funny thing is that none of the women on the website are actually real women.
Yeah.
How'd we get here?
Dude, you could ask that question all the time on this podcast. All right, so getting past champion, you're still playing. You're still straight edge.
I am.
I imagine, Chris, if I ever heard that you weren't straight edge, I would be absolutely shocked.
I would too.
I can't. It's there are a few people that are just total. I can't even inconceivable. Yeah. So that just kind of goes without saying. But you're still playing music. You're singing in Dead Weight.
Yep.
You guys, I saw you guys at Rainfest. I didn't know you have a different. I hadn't seen really that side of you before. I think people might be surprised. Yeah. Like, had you I don't
know what that means, but
you just came off like tough.
Oh.
Like it was very. I mean, you have an aggressive stage presence, and you're a great frontman. It wasn't like totally surprising. I expect you to be good at what you do, but I don't always expect it to be that good. So,
well, cool.
Awesome. Yeah, people should definitely check out Dead Weight, and you're also playing in the Crew.
Yeah. So the Crew is a straight edge band. It's much more. Dead Weight is more like New York City kind of crossover influenced, maybe. Chrome Eggs, like Sick of It All, Agnostic Front, like those are the bands that we're most inspired by. The Crew is more like Champion, maybe a little bit harder edged, like maybe like Carry On a little bit. And it's a straight edge band, and it's me, 38-year-old me, and a bunch of like 22-year-old kids, straight edge kids.
I can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, who are awesome. Like, it's such a fun band to be in because like the dudes that are in that band are like so cool. Like, they're so down for hardcore. They're so like, they get on stage, they want to jump around. Like,
are they writing the music or are you?
Oh, we're all kind of writing stuff. So yeah, yeah. So we just come in, someone has a song, we jam it out, and yeah, it's fun.
And you were in, what other stuff are you doing?
Let's see. Before that, I played bass for Gone But Not Forgotten for like 2 shows. Let's see. The Vows, which was me and Aram, and then Pettibone and Murphy from Undertow, and then Rob Moran from Unbroken. They recorded like a demo that eventually became a 7-inch. It's kind of funny because they recorded these songs, and I guess Pettibone was supposed to sing and like, I don't know, flaked out or couldn't come to record the day they were recording. So they called me like I was on my way to go eat pizza with the Down to Nothing dudes at Pie Chorus, and And they were like, hey, Pettibone's supposed to sing in this band, but he's like flaking out. Do you want to come sing? And I thought about it. I was like, that'd be awesome to sing in that band, but like, I really want pizza right now. So I turned them down for pizza and hangouts with my friends, obviously. But, and then they asked me to, after they recorded, they asked me to play like second guitar. And so we played maybe like 5 or 6 shows. And it was fun. It was a fun band to be in because like those dudes, they don't care about anything. They're just like, they're awesome. Like Pettibone, Moran, like Murphy and Rand.
Yes.
It's cool. Like, they're like, what should we cover?
Well, it's so perfect to me because I meet Rob Moran going on tour as a roadie with Undertow in the early 90s. And then, and Murph and John, friends of mine from way back. And then got you and a Ram from Champion later on. And then why don't you all form a band?
Sure.
Bring it all together.
Yeah, it was fun. Unfortunately, I feel like the best songs that we wrote in that band never got recorded. Like, the 7-inch is cool, but I feel like it might have been kind of rushed a little bit. And like,
you can't see a situation where you guys would get together and record those songs?
I don't remember anything about the songs now, except for they were really cool. But
that's a great starting place for another record.
I would love to play a song with them, or a show with those dudes again. Like, I was kind of trying to get it to happen around the Undertow reunion, but I think those dudes were a little bit preoccupied.
There was a lot going on there, yeah.
With reunioning. But, let's see, I played in a band called Poverty Bay Saints.
Oh, that's right.
It was a little bit more kind of like street punk, kind of oi influenced, maybe like somewhere between like Slapshot and with more like bluesy like solos and stuff like that. Our guitar player, not me, the other one, was really good at writing like bluesy stuff. And so he would write like 6 solos that are like, they sound like Rancid solos or something, like Social Distortion solos.
You can't play like that?
No. I always tell people that I'm not a musician. I'm more of just a performer. Like, give me like a guitar, I'll learn like the bare minimum. I'll play it on stage and I'll jump around and,
Has that been hard for you in the studio?
No. I mean, I have like decent rhythm, so I can like strum, but I never learned how to like play solos or anything. It's like power chords. And I think like playing with Tim really got me like my picking a lot better, obviously. Cause I mean, if you heard Trial, like that's all it is like speed picking, like riffs and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, what's lined up for the future, man?
As far as hardcore or
anything.
Look,
we're talking about hardcore because we know each other from hardcore.
Yeah.
But anything else that you got going on? I mean, what's your life?
Yeah. So, Dead Weight right now is we're writing an LP. We have enough songs to record, but I think we need to tighten down the screws a little bit. The LP is going to be, I don't know if this has been announced yet, so I may be pulling the curtain back, but it's going to be the Pit Vision LP.
Wait, that's the name of the... Okay, so yeah. I was told that the way you came up with the idea of calling the band Dead Weight was you put a whole bunch of asinine names in a hat and drew a name. And what were some of the other names of the band? Yeah,
so that is close. We came up with the name Dead Weight, which we thought was cool, but we knew it was like there's a million bands in the world called Dead Weight. Like, literally anytime like someone new hears our band, they're like from out of town, there's a Dead Weight in our town.
Right.
They suck, but but there's a band called Dead Weight. So it was one of those bands. So you either have to pick a band name that like no one has, or one that like everyone has, so not one person has claim over it. Right. But we never really liked the name because we wanted to have something that wasn't so generic. So our idea for coming up with band names was we thought of like the hardest words we could think of and we put them in a hat.
So what were some of the combinations?
This was not 100% serious, but if we would have came across something cool. Right. Let's see. Alley Nails was one of the
Alley Nails. Paul told me about that one. Alley Nails is actually like someone. Is there a band called Alley Nails?
No. There
could be now.
Will be.
Oh, there will be a band called Alley Nails?
Yeah, they may be, like from overseas or something, but there may be.
You imagine that name being said with an accent?
No. Just with a Z. Maybe like a New York accent. I don't know.
Alley Nails. Okay.
Yeah. SS Cold.
Wow.
There were a lot of like funny ones too, because like, you know, people can't be serious with stuff like this. So like, I think like Kitten Burger was probably something that came out. Like,
oh yeah, that's I think it's a couple decades too late for Kitten Burger. So your name of your
I think
LP?
Pit Vision might have been one of the words that came out or something.
That's like, let's just hold that aside for the LP title.
No, we actually thought about changing our name to Pit Vision for a second. But we couldn't really take it too seriously. But then we always would like play live and talk about the Pit Vision. And like, I think the Champion was like this too. Like when we came up with the name, someone like looked at their socks and was like, what about Champion? Like looking at their Champion socks. And we all laughed. Yeah, right. We're not going to name our name Champion. That's stupid. And like,
your name got me in trouble in a grocery store once.
Really?
Yeah.
What's that?
So I'm wearing this shirt. It just says Champion. It's got 2 little like screen printed drops of blood on the words. It's a great shirt.
Yeah.
And I'm with Bill Baker. That's a mistake. It don't say something to me when I'm with Bill Baker. This old lady is in front of us in line, right? When she turns, I'm talking to Bill. I'm not paying attention to her. We're getting groceries. She turns around and she goes, well, I think that's just awful. I don't think that's funny at all. And I kind of look at her and I realize she's looking right at me. And I look at Bill, I'm like, she's talking to me? She's like, I don't know why you think that. If you had been around spinal injuries the way I had, you wouldn't think that was funny. And I'm like, are you talking about my shirt? And she's like, says something else. And I'm like, I don't think my shirt is funny. And then Bill's like, he puts his finger up. He goes, you turn around and mind your own business. I'm like, oh God, Bill's going to be a senior citizen.
Lady.
He was so, and he was just like, and she literally just went, and like turned around and minded her own business. Like, oh, Bill, we don't have to threaten the elderly. Like, but I didn't, it took me a minute to even understand that she was offended because you guys had screen printed blood spots. And I wouldn't think that was funny. So, of course, I would only be wearing something like that if I thought it was humorous. So the old lady saw a Champion shirt and thought, yeah, I don't know what's worse, that woman or Bill.
Yeah, definitely the latter. Luckily, you weren't wearing like an internal affair shirt or like.
Bill is, Bill will engage with people. One time, some guy was mad in traffic, and we were driving, and he was ahead of us. He was one car ahead of us, and I think he didn't like something Bill was driving or I was driving. I don't even remember who was driving, but he didn't like something that had happened. So we pulled up to this light, and the dude gets out of his car and starts walking back towards our car. And he's just like a middle-aged like businessman kind of guy or something, right? Not like, but still raging enough to want to get out and walk back at us. And Bill leans over and he goes, "You go get the fuck back in your car." And the dude just went whoop, turned right back around and got in his car. Like, I think. He can just deliver this angry, seething thing. Because, I mean, what's he going to do? Like, Bill's going to step up when he gets to the car. Like, all right, buddy, you asked for it. But, okay, back to what you were saying. Pit Vision.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Oh, you were saying Champion's name was originally a joke.
Yeah, but the more we joked about it, the more it kind of like sounded cool. So
eventually,
same with Pit Vision.
Eventually, you have to commit. But I like it. So the Deadweight LP will be called Pit Vision. How many songs?
I don't know, 10, 12, something like that.
10 or 12 songs.
Yeah.
Do you already have a label?
Yes.
Were we allowed to say or not?
I think so. So we're gonna do it with React.
Nice.
But another label's also gonna help out. So it'll be a split label. And maybe I shouldn't say what label that is yet.
That's fine.
It's not a big label. It's not anything anyone's ever heard of, but I don't want to ruin the surprise. In October, you may be hearing about some things.
Very cool.
Related to this label.
Awesome. And, what do you do with yourself when you're not doing awesome hardcore stuff?
So I hang out mostly with my fiance, Avery, and our dog, Compton. We watch a lot of TV. Let's see.
Don't you play baseball?
A little bit. Like in the summer, we play some baseball. Just a bunch of hardcore kids get together. It's a lot of fun. We had a game a couple weeks ago that was pretty cool. During Seafair, so there were like blue angels flying over us while we were playing. We had our own personal like flyover.
Very American.
Yeah, it was great. Let's see. Been doing a little bit of backpacking recently. Jim and I and Todd from Champion, as well as some other dudes, like core dudes, went on a trip recently. That was a lot of fun.
I love that you guys are tight like that.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys got tighter almost after the band ended.
Maybe. I mean, we were always really tight when the band happened. I think we, I mean, just like any band, there's always headbutting, but I think one thing that Aram really brought to the band was like, you know, his counseling abilities. So like he would sit us down and be like,
yeah, in between headbutting.
Yeah, and there was
butt heads with the best of them.
Oh, and there was some gnarly fights that we got in, but like at the end of the fight, it was always like we were in a better relationship before the fight happened. Like there would be times where we'd be on tour and we would literally say like, okay, we need to have a band meeting right now. All the roadies, sorry, but out of the van. Or like, stay in the van. We're going to go around the corner and like talk. And we would just, like, I imagine, I don't know if this happened while you were on tour with us.
I don't remember specific stuff.
There were definitely times where we would probably leave the roadies in the van or somewhere for like an hour at least. And they would probably be like, are they dead? Like, what's going on? Did they kill each other? But you know, and it would always be super awkward. Like it would be like, you piss me off when you like screaming at times. And like, but by the end of it, it was always like we were even tighter. Like
a band's like a very, very complicated relationship.
It is. It's
out on tour with each other constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great learning experience. Like, like there's nothing, like there's few things you can do in life that are like teach you about like interpersonal relationships better than being in a band and touring like 10 months out of the year with like minimal money, minimal sleep.
So you just mentioned that you were the old guy in a band with a bunch of young people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, I mean, I've definitely been in that situation before. Mm-hmm. In terms of being around a lot of people in the hardcore scene being a lot younger.
Yeah.
And now it's even more so, although people leave less.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of old dudes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys that probably would think they were the old dudes if it weren't for the fact that there's still guys in their 40s hanging around. So can you perceive of a time like when you're gonna say, hanging up the guitar?
I don't know.
You ever think about that?
I mean, there's been times where didn't play in a band for a while, and like after Champion broke up, I wasn't in a band. Well, there's a caveat. Me, immediately after we broke up, Jim, Todd, and I and Paul from Sinking Ships started a band called Jim.
Wait, I remember hearing about this.
Yep.
Like, so it was going to be like his Danzig?
No, it was going to be like Civ.
Okay.
So
okay.
I had a shirt idea. I had a shirt idea. It was going to say Jim real big on the front, and on the back it was going to say, I'm not perfect, I'm just Jim. Which is a Gorilla Biscuits line. I'm not perfect, I'm just Civ. Which is so perfect if you know Jim. And he just loved Jim, my best friend in the world, but he has a temper. Like, he was once called a big ball of hate in my presence by his brother. That was super awkward. But, Jim, you're just a big ball of hate. I think Danny was probably like 17 at the time, but
Danny, who's like for Sinking Ships.
Yeah. Jim's brother. So yeah, we wrote like 3 songs and then nothing ever happened. But after that, like I wasn't playing in bands forever, and it felt so good to not not have to worry about going to practice, not have to worry about like band voting for t-shirts or like compromising on which tours to do. It felt awesome.
Then why did you go back?
It only felt good for a small amount of time, and then you start to like miss that itch of just like playing with dudes, like creating something and like getting on stage and just like pounding it out. It's an awesome feeling.
So since we're talking about old dudes, when you look at really old dudes that still play music for a living, like the Rolling Stones, it begins to make sense.
Yeah.
Like, well, what else am I going to do in my life?
Yeah. And those dudes probably have a lot more financial incentive than like some hardcore bands. But
wait a minute, do they have more financial incentive or less? How many millions do you need?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they live a lifestyle that they'd be broke if they weren't still getting the money off the tour, but that's got to be.
It's a very non-millionaire thing for you to say, Dave.
Good. It is a very non-millionaire. You know what? I'm a person that believes that you can have enough.
Yeah, I agree. But
so that's okay. Wait a minute. Doesn't that make my point better though?
Mm-hmm.
Like doing that to yourself, even when you clearly don't need the money.
Mm-hmm. There's
got to be something more. If the Rolling Stones were for poor, like down on their luck senior citizens that were gonna lose the house if they didn't pay the back taxes, so they got to go out on one more tour.
Like Crazy Heart.
Yes.
Jeff Bridges.
Yes, but that's not what we're talking about. I think I think it's just there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, So I hope you continue to do what you've been doing for a long time to come.
Me too. It's fun. I wish I could do it more. It's just, it's hard again, especially like Dead Weight is such a fun band to play in and like a fun group of dudes to be in, but everyone has crazy schedules. So it's like impossible to do stuff. We play like 3 times a year probably.
Oh yeah. It gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had, does anyone in the band have kids?
No.
It was funny. Mike Lam was pointing out that we know so many people without kids. I think it's this life does that.
Yeah.
Which would, I mean, I think at that point it would just end the possibility of doing the band.
Yeah, maybe. Or you could just bring the kid on tour like HDL.
Well, that's, yeah. and basically instill in them what they're going to do for the rest of their life, probably.
Start a band with them. Yeah. The crew's different though, because it's like that's another cool thing about the crew is it's just like we can just do anything, you know. None of those dudes have any obligations except for the other bands that they're in that do more stuff, so that's cool too.
What bands are you excited about in the Northwest right now?
There's a lot. There's some cool bands.
There's a bunch of stuff going on right now, and it's been surprising.
Yeah.
I played Gloss.
Yeah, dude, they're so good.
For someone the other night, and they just
Mm-hmm.
for Nate Turpin, who's been on the podcast, and he was just like, "What? Where'd this come from?" You know,
dude, I may be going out on a limb here, but that might be the best demo I've ever heard come out of the Northwest. Like
Gloss,
it's so good. Yeah.
Well, and it does what it's supposed to do. It just like punches you in the face. Yeah. It's like, oh, I haven't heard anything like this since like Born Against or something. It's
so raw, so angry, so pissed off. Like it's great.
And so, what does GLOSS stand for?
Girls Living Outside Society's Shit, I think.
Yes, that's what it is. They're from Olympia, and everyone in the band is it true? Everyone in the band is trans? I don't even want to say it wrong.
I don't think they're all trans, but I think like a few of them are. I think they call themselves like a trans/queer/ I don't. There's something else.
Right. I showed somebody video of them playing live. Someone who doesn't really like follow music, and they were just like, "What the hell is going on there?" And I'm like, pure awesome like rage and just. Like, this is music that will scare people's parents. Like, oh, it really will scare people.
Yeah, it's great, dude. So that's another band that I'm really psyched on. There's some bands from Olympia. Odd Man Out is awesome. Straight edge band, kind of has like a SSD vibe.
Well, I guess they're gonna have to change their name.
Is that another?
Steve Caballero was in.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Was in Odd Man Out.
Yeah.
There's only so many. No, I know.
There's only so many like words you can put together and make a new band.
I think after the band hasn't been around for coming up on 30 years, maybe you can be the next Odd Man Out.
Maybe they're like X Odd Man Out X or something.
Oh,
or Odd Man Out AD, like one of the things that people do to make their names a different name.
They could be Odd Man Out UK just to do it.
Oli. Singled Out's another good one. Red Scare. Keep It Clear up in Canada, True Identity are awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like really cool bands from the Northwest right now, and it's awesome. Wreck, Ill Intent.
I think it's only going to keep getting crazier because with what's going on down in Tacoma, Real Art's opening up. They've got together an all ages venue that's going to have all kind. I mean, it's not just going to be hardcore. It's they really want to like cover the whole spectrum of music, but a space like that. Run by hardcore dudes. Yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of hardcore.
It's going to be great. I think Dead Weight's playing there soon. The 3rd, I think it's going to be a good show. It's like Ill Intent, I think, maybe Power or Wreck.
One of the is it the kickoff show?
It might be the first like hardcore show. I think they've had some shows, but I think it's like the first all hardcore show, maybe.
Nice.
But yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, very cool, man. So we're gonna basically close it up here. What else would you like to say? What did we not cover today that we should have?
I got one.
Oh, go.
I will be your first podcast guest who never listened to DRI, never got into DRI.
You're almost. Yeah. Someone else said that they did not. It might have been Carl said no, but you also did not. Yeah. And considering that your friends were, the skateboarder kids and stuff, I would have thought that would have happened.
Yeah, like I said, like the skater kids at my school, they were not very cool. Like I actually hated them all. Like I didn't really fight much in high school, but the one time that I almost got in a fight was like this dude, the other skater kid that I wanted to fight so bad, and like
because they kind of became like bros, right?
No, they were just kind of dicks. Like, they listened to some rap, they listened to some alternative, some grunge stuff, but like they were not very cool. Like I didn't feel like they were very, I think in high school, I more like to hang out with like the dudes that would probably now be considered like goth dudes, you know, like
Right.
the dudes in trench coats that listened to Dead Kennedys. Like they were like way more punk rock in my opinion than like the skateboarders.
Oh,
were.
yeah.
Like they had like trench coats and long hair and like listened to Dead Kennedys, and a couple of them had kids.
Well, no, but see, that's those were the same people. Like for me in high school, those were the skateboarders also, or they were at least close enough that you'd be like, "Come on, dude, come skating with us." I can't skateboard.
Yeah, I have combat boots. I cannot skate.
Yeah, you can. Come on, but they'd at least come hang out because I could smoke cloves and watch you skate or whatever.
Yeah. So I hung out with them at school, but I never really hung out with them outside of school. I mostly just, I don't know. I just kind of had random kids like random friends that I kind of got into skateboarding. I had one friend, but he kind of moved away for a little bit, and then
And he might have been the guy that would have played DRI for you.
maybe.
But you're not a metal guy.
Not really. I mean, you know what's funny? Like, probably I've only just started getting into like Metallica and Pantera within like the last 3 years, probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which is kind of crazy. I mean, if you think about it, but
Yeah, because it seems like most like guitarists and hardcore bands.
yeah, and it was close to like I think I might have like I listened to a little Guns N' Roses, but like I don't know, it wasn't as it was different, you know, it wasn't as like rage filled. It was more like rockin', you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, so where did you get? Okay, here we go. This is what we'll end it with. People know you as Posi Chris. Why?
I think it was just because of like, I think Jim probably like first started calling me Posi Chris, and that's because I was really getting into like, so a band that really like affected me in a big way was Mouthpiece when they played at Big John's. A lot of the bands at that time were like, just more noisy, you know, like it seemed like everyone was really into Dead Guy, and I liked Dead Guy, but like I more identified with like, you know, like straight edge, like fat. I more identified with fast stuff, you know, and so I made myself like the slower, heavy stuff, but like my real love was like the fast stuff. And like when they came, like they played like the style of music that I wanted to play, and they played like, I want to say they did like a Youth of Today cover and New Direction, I think, and I think they did a Project X cover, and like that just blew my mind because people weren't really doing covers really like at that time. So like I saw this band do like covers of like bands that I worshipped, right? And I just like lost my mind. Before that, it was like kickboxing, you know, you'd go to shows and you would do your little arm windmills and stuff. And then when I saw that band and everyone was up front singing, like I don't remember much from that show, but I remember this feeling of like someone was grabbing my hoodie like to get over the top, and it was like choking me, but I was like so psyched. And I was like, I think I went to the show alone and like
At Big John's?
Yeah. And I couldn't like stop thinking about it. Like, I don't know. It was awesome. So like the bands that I really got into after that were the bands that were from like New Jersey, like Pennsylvania, like all those like Youngblood Records bands. And so I was buying a bunch of those records, and like I think it just kind of came from that stuff.
So I mean, some dudes get stuck with Stinky.
Yeah.
Some dudes get stuck with Posi.
Yeah.
Posi's way better.
Not so bad.
Posi Chris.
Yeah.
And then Neil would say Posi Chris is a dick. What's that all about?
I think we just always ended up hurting each other at shows, you know?
This is Neil, who, I'm not going to pronounce it right, even though I did sing on this, who currently does Ikari, and who was singing in, at the time... Contingent, yeah. So
they made a sticker that said Posi Chris.
They made a sticker that said Posi Chris is a dick, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But it was never any actual malice, huh?
No, we were close friends then. So I mean, it was like, I mean, we're still friends. So I don't mean to say it like that, but we were like, he kind of started hanging out with like the whole like Fife Crew like gang, you know. When I say gang, I don't really mean gang, although some people probably thought Fife Crew was a gang.
Fife Crew being all the people from, like you said, down south.
Yeah. The Fife Crew name is funny, actually, how that came about. Because I think a lot of people thought we were from Fife and not one single one of us was.
Right.
I think we were at a show at the Goat House. It might have been, I forget how to pronounce her name, but back then everyone knew her as Maddie.
Yeah,
I listened to your pod. Is it Matisse?
Matisse.
She was like walking. We were coming into the show, and I think it was her or someone. Some woman, some girl says, "Oh, Tacoma Crew's in the house," and Markley being
wow, I hear that in her voice.
Yeah, and Markley being Markley, like very no. Actually, we're not from Tacoma.
We're from Fife.
No, and she goes, "Where are you from?" And he's like, and he was from Federal Way, so he's like, South End Federal Way. And she's like, oh, sorry, Fife Crew is in the house.
And she did it.
Yeah. And so we all thought it was funny. So we just started joking around about it, and it kind of stuck. We made stickers.
So you're telling me
stuff.
There's no Fife Crew member that was actually from Fife?
No, not one. Although I think Jesse O'Donnell, who came around a little bit later, went to Fife High, later on. But
Jesse O'Donnell, Tori O'Donnell, who we've mentioned earlier, his brother, and he was also in Love with Nothing, and he's recorded tons of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, not one single person was from Fife, but oh no, it wasn't Fife Crew, it was Fife Straight Edge. Tacoma Straight Edge is in the house. Oh, sorry, Fife Straight Edge.
But people said Fife Crew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I guess it's kind of cool if no one can settle on a location, picking one that relates to no one, and you can all claim it. That works.
Yeah, and they were shows at the Java Jump in Fife, so that was a place that people would go for shows sometimes. So,
yes, 7 seconds in knapsack.
Yeah, I missed that one unfortunately, but it's legendary. Everyone that was there, that was a monumental show for them.
It was a good one. All right, my friend. I think we're going to close it down. So this is your last chance. I'm sorry you already pulled the DRI thing, which is cool.
Yeah.
So I guess we're getting a list now. It's still amazing how many people they did affect. But,
one other thing. This is going to sound cheesy too, but when I first started coming to shows, I didn't have any friends that were hardcore dudes, and back then the only way that you could learn about hardcore bands was by looking at the inserts of bands records that you would get and say, oh, that dude's wearing a Snapcase shirt or whatever, and then you would go buy a Snapcase CD, and then you'd open that and that dude's wearing a Sick of It All shirt. And but one thing I did get was you had a zine.
I had a zine called Excursion.
Yeah, and Carrie Whitney had a zine.
Point furthest from the middle.
Yes, and those I read probably cover to cover infinite times. I would be driving on my family would be driving on excursions. I would be looking at the same pictures of I don't even know, integrity and donuts or something seared into my brain. But yeah, so that was really a big part of getting me, because I think when I found out about that Balance of the World show, it was probably because there were names that I recognized from those zines. I don't even remember where I got the zines, but yeah, they might have been there were a couple bigger shows that I went to, Civ, Sick of It All, or no, Civ and Quicksand and Botch at the Firehouse.
Oh yeah.
So some shows like that I would hear about in my little corner of Kent.
Yeah, and I always saw that zine you're talking about had a 1007 record on it.
Yes,
had a one-sided 1007 7-inch,
yeah.
And I think I was selling it for $1. Does that sound right?
I don't know, but sounds right. It was a good song. I remember that.
Go to Hell. It's the name of the song. Very cool. So, well, awesome. That would have been before we knew each other too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
There were some good zines in Seattle back then. Rust was another one that was awesome.
Rust was a lot of fun. Derek Harn, who's associated with the website and with this podcast, he did Rust.
That was great. There were a lot of people.
I always wrote stupid crap for Rust.
I remember you did something about Greg Bennick. Being an alien,
being part of an alien conspiracy.
Yeah. That's good.
Jugglers and Mimes. The only reason I did the thing about Greg Bennick is because I had one of his headshot photos and I had a picture of an alien, and they were about the same size, but they had that lyric, "Rip the mask of truth from the lies," right? Or strip the mask of truth. Yeah. So I was like, oh, no. I can't. I got to put this alien head under his face and write that underneath it.
That was great.
And then it's I need something to go with it. So I just wrote whatever bullshit.
It was awesome.
Derek would be like, come on, I need an article. Or something. I don't have anything to write about.
I think he said something about all mimes are aliens. Kill all mimes and jugglers.
Yeah, it was a call to arms against an invasion that I was perceiving, because there was
awesome.
there was a big blackout. There was a power outage that they hadn't been able to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I used that as my story. I don't know. It's dumb, but it's amazing that you know about that, because I don't think most people remember that garbage.
It was funny.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah.
Any more? Because you might have another thing.
No, probably until you hit stop, I'll probably remember a few things, but such is life.
Yes. You can always send me a message with some after the fact stuff I can put in the corrections section. But thank you for coming out, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Oh,
you just had the most awkward handshake attempt since earlier this evening.
I will say, was it awkward earlier this evening?
Well, I didn't know your little snap thing that you're doing. So.
I do it, the handshake with like a snap and a point at the end. Mm-hmm. I've done that for a long time. But I'm gonna blame this is we have these wind screens in front of the microphones, and when I reached, I couldn't even see my hand. Yeah. So I actually was counting on you to just grab my hand. And
sorry to let you down.
It's okay. You'd never let me down, brother. I'll talk to you later, man.
Thanks.
And so we have come to the end of another episode of I've Known You Too Long. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm gonna have these conversations and I'm gonna record them and put them up regardless. But I just, I hope that once you get to the end of, if you stay with us through the entire 2+ hours, I hope you feel like, it was a good use of your time. So yeah. Let me see. I put some pretty cool stuff on the blog page for this, or I will be putting some stuff up. Some of the things that Chris talked about, like that skate park that was actually just like a private place in Auburn. I found a cool article about it, so go check that out. I said I was going to put up a picture of Torches to Rome at the Goat House. I did find one photo, so that's up. I talked about the Candy Crew photo, and we talked about the Candy Crew incident, and I don't know if it came across very clear as to what it was, and honestly, it wasn't much of anything. Those guys showed up one night at a show, and a bunch of the dudes there had a problem. I think they thought they were muscling in on the girls. But, like we said in the episode, it was new kids in the scene. It was fun. But I have had the picture of the Candy Crew in my hand within the last month, and it is gone. It is just gone. So, unfortunately, it's just going to have to, be in people's memories, and I don't think anyone's going to be too heartbroken over it. But I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll find it. Whatever book it got slid behind or wherever it fell, I'll find it and I'll throw it up. As far as corrections go, the only one I know for sure is that I didn't have the whole Veriflex thing down completely. I didn't know exactly what the story was with that when he brought up that he had a Veriflex. I said that they were a decent company at some point, or at least slightly better than the normal, department store crap. And yeah, it's true. Pro skater Alan Losey was their team rider, and it was actually his family that owned the company in the 80s. So it was a little bit better. He was a name. You'd see him in some ads, So there was that. I think that's about it. Yeah, and I don't have a whole lot to say on the way out here, so I'm just going to say, please do these things for me. If you enjoy this podcast, please go to iTunes, rate and review it. If you don't want to review it, just click that 5 stars. Just give us a little 5-star review. It helps a lot. Follow the Nobody's Knows Facebook page. The more people we have there, we can get the information about these podcasts out to, the better. And when I get new stuff, which I keep saying is coming, and it is, I've had a meeting in the last week about a new show. So, but all of these things are perpetually in the future. We'll see. Eventually there'll be a new show and you'll be like, God, why did he hype that up? Okay, so do that. Follow us on Twitter. All this stuff is available. Go to nobodysnose.com. Check out the blog pages for the shows, for the episodes that you listen to. Check out some of the articles I've written there in the rants section. There's going to be more and more on that page, and it's a lot of fun. And it's going to continue to be a lot of fun. If you could do those things for us, that's awesome. If you even wanted to do more, there's a store section. There's some things you could buy. You could even donate to the show if you wanted to. You don't have to do that. But you know what? There's some old Excursion stuff in there. Copies of my movie on DVD. Just some interesting stuff. And as just like the rest of it, I'll be adding more to this as the show goes on, and as there's, more of the guests that I have are related to the items that I'm selling, for the most part. So, with that, I'm going to bid you all adieu. No, I'm not. I'm just going to say goodbye. All right.
This podcast is a product of the Nobody's Knows Podcast Network. Executive producers David R. Larson and K. Drake Streetman. Music for this episode provided by Polymorph from the record Artifacts, Demos, and Debris.